It's time for Mac Break Weekly. Alex, Renee, Andy, they're all here. We'll talk about Renee's review of the new iPad mini. I think we all like it quite a bit. The EU says it should be Type-C for everything. Alex Lindsay thinks that's a terrible idea. And the new iWork is here. The new iWork is here. All that and lots more to talk about next on Mac Break Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is Twit.
This is Mac Break Weekly, episode 785, recorded Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. Rubber Chicken Rickroll. Mac Break Weekly is brought to you by AT&T. If there are friends and family members you haven't talked to in a while, don't worry, it's never too late to reconnect. To help, AT&T is offering deals on the latest smartphones. It's not complicated. Everyone deserves something new. So AT&T is giving new and existing customers their best deals on every smartphone, even the latest ones. Restrictions and exceptions may apply. Visit att.com for details. And by CashFly. Give your users the seamless online experience they want. Power your site or app with CashFly's CDN and be 30% faster than the competition. Learn more at twit.cashfly.com. It's time for Mac Break Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Apple, of which there is very little, but that's okay. That's okay. Rene Ritchie is here. He's got the new iPad mini. We could talk about that from youtube.com/Rene Ritchie. Oh, I see you went with the lavender cover. I did with
barely
the,
lavender.
I went with the, what do they call this? Interstellar white? That's ridiculous. It's just silver.
We'll make the news, Leo. We don't need no stinking news. We are the news.
We are the news. And then I went with the white cover, which I'm already regretting. I'm going to have to get some of those Mr. Clean abrasive pads to clean that up. Just like I do with my white Adidas. But I do like this. And yeah, this is, just because we didn't have the camera, but just to show you. That's
it's so small.
Interstellar is the same as
Starlight.
silver. Starlight, whatever the hell they call it.
It's silver with a hint of gold, Leo.
Okay. But for people who are saying,
like
where's the light silver? That's the one you want. Andy Anako's here, WGBH Boston.
See, that's the thing. If you order the eggshell and they sent you the ivory, you're going to send that stuff back because that's not what you ordered.
I need my perfect bone shade of white. Also with
bone's a whole other thing.
Bones, yeah. And also with us from Office Hours and 090.media, Mr. Alex Lindsay.
I like gray. As you can see, I like to have different versions of gray.
You just
I
want
like
the pro.
You just want gray.
You don't disagree with Apple, who says pros don't want color.
That's true. Well, the problem is that when you're doing work with color, you don't want any other colors.
Yes,
that's the big issue is because they contaminate your vision.
Shocking. So, no contamination here.
Exactly.
We could talk about the mini. Did you put your review up yet, Renee, for the mini?
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
We couldn't talk about it last week.
I quite like it.
Because weirdly, the embargo on the Mini was later than the embargo on the phone.
It was the next day.
It's just strange.
But thank goodness, Leo, because I don't know how people who review more than just Apple stuff, because I saw some people they had Android reviews and Apple reviews and the Microsoft Surface review.
This is the crazy season.
Bless her heart, she did 9 videos in 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a different problem. I have to buy them all. So it's a very expensive process.
You have an Audi, not an any problem.
Yeah. But I'm very happy about the Mini. I think this is a really interesting form factor. Andy and I were talking about it. I think you agree, Andy, it's a content consumption device. It's too small really to do much typing on.
I think that it really is, I hate to be so banal, but it really is the definition of larger than a phone, smaller than an iPad, or smaller than a tablet. And that's for tasks too, where like you were saying, sometimes you spend so much time on Reddit, I spend so much time like keeping up with news, reading.
It's perfect for that.
Papers,
reading books, news, any websites, and perfect for that. Last night I was reading a website. Lisa leaned over and said, "What is that? Is it your Kindle?" I said, "No, it's the Mini." She said, that's perfect. I said, yes.
Yep.
And it is nice to have something where when I'm out of the office for like 3 or 4 hours, oftentimes I will just stick something with a large screen in my pocket, because sometimes more so when I was writing for the paper than now, but it's like something happened right now, and it'll be 4 hours before I can be back in my office. I definitely need to write 800 words right here, right now on this park bench.
I guess I could.
And
I wouldn't
like
want to, but I could.
Right.
It fits right in my European carry-all very nicely.
Right, exactly.
It fits in my jacket
the back pocket
pocket.
of my non-hipster, non-skinny jeans.
And notice, by the way, I keep the pencil on it. And actually, I was inspired by Om Malik, who wrote a little piece about how much he likes his Mini. And he pointed out that while you wouldn't want to do a lot of data entry on it because the keyboard's so small, the new Scribble feature in iPad OS is just right. And the pencil is just right for a lot of the gestury kind of things that you want to do. I think it's an instant notes and stuff like that, because Scribble is very accurate. You can write in, accurate enough I can write in Google searches into my browser and things like that. So I kind of feel like it fits very naturally with
You can put one of these in your bag, Leo. Just like the purple version.
Yeah, see, I have that. Remember Andy recommended that folding thing that you put the keyboard in?
Yeah.
I have that. I don't want to.
You can color match it now.
That's bigger than the iPad. The whole point of this is compact.
I think the pen is the really important piece of it, because, for instance, I build a lot of. I probably build 1 or 2 slide decks a week. And I have a very specific pattern of how I do it. Is I lay it out, I put it out, I outline it.
You sound like Liam
notes.
Neeson. I have a very specific pattern of skills.
I have a specific set of skills. that I've acquired over many years.
Yes.
But my pattern is that I go into notes and I write out, I outline what I want to do, what the slides are going to say. And I just find it easier to think about it in single words or lines. Then I go to my iPad and I draw everything. I draw every slide. I just look at notes and I just draw every slide. And that I don't care how big the screen is. These are like chicken scratches of I'm going to have this here, and then I'm going to have a little thing that goes over here. And the reason I do that is because if you start building your slide deck, it's really easy for you to get caught up in like what picture and should these have rounded corners and what text am I going to use? And you don't want to think about that when you're trying to think about the whole story flow of your deck.
I have a phrase for that. And the computer editing lends itself to dicking around.
I didn't want to say that, but yeah, that's the key.
And that's dicking around is the enemy of productivity.
Yeah. So what you do is you get first you get the outline done, then you get the visual story done, and then you fill it all in with graphics, and then you tweak it all, and then you're done. And now the filling in with graphics and the tweaking, I do all in on the desktop, because it's too hard to do that in fine detail and on the iPad. But then I oftentimes present from my iPad. So I either present it via AirPlay or I hook it up to an HDMI output. And I mean, like 99% of the time I'm displaying. And so the Mini, I hadn't bought it yet, but I decided last night when I was using my larger iPad, and I was like, I really want a smaller one. I decided last night I'm going to order one.
The one I don't have is the 11, which might be perfect. I don't know. The 12.9 is so big.
Amazing.
It's a computer. It's a laptop.
That's the one I have.
You know what
And
happened
that's all I
Saturday,
bought
Leo?
for a while.
Yeah.
On Saturday, a certain person named Georgia Dow stole my 11-inch iPad for the exact same reason. She'd been using a MacBook Air. She hated the 12.9-inch. She goes, "What's this?" It was just on the table. It was minding its own business. I said, "Well, it's the 11-inch." She said, "What?"
Bye-bye.
She picked it up and then she left with
now.
it. Yes.
The Mini the touch targets on it are really, really small. In fact, I don't know, you probably can't even see this, but my dock, which by the way seems to be able to expand infinitely. I don't know. At some point, I'll guess I'll run out. But my dock, when it's in portrait mode, it's not terrible when it's in landscape mode. But when it's in portrait mode, those touch targets are so small. What's the story?
There's a really funny story about that. So Steve Jobs did not want an iPad Mini. He thought it was dumb. He rallied against small tablets on conference calls.
He's the guy who said you have to sharpen your fingers. Yeah.
And then Eddie Q got the Galaxy Tab, and he's like, "This is great. We've got to make this." And Tim's like, "No, forget." Sorry, and Steve's like, "No, forget." He's like, "No, we really got to make this." He's like, "All right, fine. Like the same as iTunes on Windows. It's your fault if it fails." So they made it, and then the team was like, "Look, we just did an iPhone. We just did an App Store. We just did an iPad. We do not have time to make another complete interface for something." And someone said, "Well, why don't we just shrink it down?" What? Well, if we shrink it down, it'll be the exact same size as the iPhone. We'll take the iPad interface, it'll shrink down to the iPhone tap target size, and we'll just ship it. So they didn't bother to make a whole new interface. They just used the iPad interface at iPhone density.
That's interesting.
That was in itself brilliant, because that meant that you don't have to spin up developers on here.
Right.
It is we need you to create new interfaces. It's just also that was a selling point for me when I bought mine. I think I bought the first generation. It was like, no, this will run all the apps that you would enjoy on the iPad at the original scale, at the original size, with no adaptations. And so that was like, great, take it, done.
And yet iPhone apps aren't horrible on this. I mean, there's clearly still iPhone apps.
Like Instagram, because there's no iPad app.
It just drives me nuts.
Can you make actual cell phone calls with it? If you have the cellular service, or is it always just
No,
use it
the
for
cellular
data?
service is a
there's no
data-only
telephone
service. But, so by the way, here's the Instagram app, which it fills the screen nicely, but you can tell it's an iPhone app, right? It just doesn't quite have
And
that aesthetic.
it breaks with every new iPhone because they hard code it to every specific
so
iPhone. And now
stupid.
I think they're just terrified of trying to
So
of recoding it to make an iPad app.
And yet, this is consumable. I mean, it almost fills the screen. It almost feels like it's an iPad app on the
If
Mini.
only Apple
anyway.
had something called size classes they
Yeah.
could use to make it automatically fit any device. To be
So I forgot
only
what you
Facebook had
what were you
resources.
what were you saying, Alex? I forgot. I
I
gonna-
was just asking if you can make cell phone calls, because
Oh, that's right. This is a
there's
big
always
question for me, because I wanted to make this my phone.
Right. Because
So-
I never pick up my phone. I never do this. I mean, I never put my phone up against my head, ever.
So your
it's-
SIM has a phone number. That's how all the carriers work. But it doesn't work as a phone through the SIM. However, there are plenty of services that will do data-based phone calls.
Well, I use Apple
I said FaceTime all the time.
FaceTime audio
Yeah.
all the time. Like literally, that is my primary way of calling anybody with a blue thing. And everybody else, I schedule time to meet on Zoom.
So I'm
or
playing
something.
with
Like
ways.
I schedule it.
Because the one thing missing is a way to call a phone number, a landline from your Mini. And Google Voice will do
pay
that.
for Skype
Skype will do that.
Yeah.
There are plenty of programs that'll do that. So I'm really
I still
tempted.
have. I guess my whole thing is that I can do something where I can make 90% of the calls, 95% of the calls that I would normally make, and then I still have a phone for the things that need to.
If you pay a little bit of money, you get a regular phone number with Skype, which I have.
Right.
And then this becomes the phone number of my Mini. So yes, I think the answer is, and increasingly so, because LTE is, voice over LTE now, and everything's moving to data. I think increasingly this could be a phone.
I found that with, I don't know what's happened with cell towers, whether it's the 5G or I don't know what it is, but it's gotten a lot worse recently. And I actually find...
Are you Verizon?
I'm both Verizon and AT&T, and both are worse.
Lisa's complaining about that too. She threw out, I use T-Mobile. She said, no, I'm not going to use it. Verizon's so much better. And now she's bitching because it's not so good anymore.
So at my house, which used to work just fine, my cell phone calls are falling apart all the time. And so I just decided that's what moved me to the Apple FaceTime audio was that I suddenly had nice clear calls. And then I got so used to the quality of the FaceTime audio that I don't want to go back to the cell phone anytime. And so now I'm just driving and I just call with FaceTime audio unless I have to go to a cell number, and so, which I don't have to do very often. So I don't talk to people on the phone that much.
I guess the big question, and I haven't tried this, is if I use Skype and my Skype phone number, will this ring? And won't I have to have Skype open?
No, I don't think so. I think if you have
It has to be backgrounded, but you can't kill it. If you force quit it, you'll have to restart it, but I think it'll go on.
Well, let's say if I didn't force quit it. So it would work then, huh? I should try this.
I have things calling all the time.
Really?
Signal.
It's bugging you
all.
Signal does it, right?
Yeah.
Does WhatsApp allows phone calls?
FaceTime Messenger.
The question is from a landline, because we know you can use FaceTime to anybody with an iPhone, and I know you don't have any friends who don't have iPhones, but if you had
I have friends that don't have iPhones. I just don't talk to them on the phone that often.
I'm not going to call you.
It just doesn't happen that often. I don't do it on purpose. I just
all right. Let me try. I don't know if no, and I guess the do not disturb rules and everything are going to still apply. Let me just try calling this. So, I guess we're back at 10 digits here. I'm not going to give out this number because this is not one I... So what if I close this and see if it'll ring? I'm calling it now from my phone. I don't think it's ringing. Maybe it takes a while to signal through. That's I completely...
Apple should just put a phone app on it. That's what they should do. Like just
No, they don't. You know why they
don't?
don't? They don't want you to buy this instead of an iPhone. It's half. Yeah, it's half the price of an iPhone.
Remember all those photos
Well,
of
but I
people
think
with giant Android tablets with phone apps, and they put it next to their head as a joke? But it was like, that's fantastic.
This doesn't look very different than the Surface Duo next to my head. But
It's a
by the way,
unfoldable.
no one talks on the phone like this anymore. Have you noticed that? We were talking about this on Twig. Everybody talks like this.
Well, I have AirPods,
Or you have AirPods,
or I have
yeah.
headphones or something. I don't.
You need
I just don't
wireless
like
Oh, they're all in public, and they're on speaker, and they're very loud, and it's very weird.
Yes, I
Yes.
was about to say. They wait till they get to the quiet car of the Amtrak train before they decide, hey,
Hello?
I should be hearing this argument with my boyfriend.
Mama.
Mamma mia.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that the pass through of phone calls to the device is the need for it is understated, because I think all of us will say that getting an actual phone call is the least pleasant thing that we could ever do on our.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
We live our lives to make, but nonetheless, sometimes it really is the best solution to a problem, such as I don't have to tell people what app do you have or what's your account name on this. It's like, no, here is a 10-digit number that seems to work. As a matter of fact, every time. Because it turned out to get a really good connection between my studio and WGDBH studios in Boston. The simplest and easiest solution was to simply have me set up a Skype phone number, and they will call me from their switchboard. But it will still be like all Wi-Fi, so it's not going to be as good as directly internet connection, but at least it's better. And it was reliable. It works every single week. And there comes a point where it's like, which would you rather have? A reliable connection that will always work, and when you call me 2 minutes before I'm supposed to be taking up 20 to 25 minutes of stro time, or would you have something that's better quality, but maybe it'll work, maybe it won't?
Well, and I think that the other thing though is that because we get so much junk calls, all these. That I think that a lot of people like me, if I don't know what the number is, I never pick it up. Ever.
Oh, no, never.
Like, I just never.
Can I point that out? Can I say that's one thing where I really wish Apple would put more work into, because that's one area in which like a Pixel phone really shines. Because I don't answer the phone. Because my phone, I'll hear it ring. It will click to voicemail, and instantly I'm seeing a live transcript of what whoever this is saying. And if it's all gibberish, I know that it's somebody speaking in Mandarin trying to sell me a phone card. But if it's like, "Hi Andy, this is your cousin Phil," and burst pipe. Okay, hi Phil, what's going on? Hi.
Right.
And there's so many things you can do with a phone connection that would solve these problems. And I think Apple is now well set up to make this as good a phone as it is at doing anything else, instead of it being stuck into wherever they left it in 2011.
There is continuity call relay that'll let you answer regular phone calls on your iPad that route through your iPhone. But I'm trying it now, and it doesn't seem reliable the other way.
Yeah.
Again, if it's something where a hospital is going to call me, they're not going to text me, they're not going to IM me on this message. They're going to try to call me to let me know about what's going on in a situation with a family member, and that's where you absolutely want a phone call to go through for you, not to mistake it for a spam call, and for everything to work the way that a phone's. You were raised to believe that a phone system should work without the billing problems.
Well, we have to solve that by fixing the hospitals, not the phones, right?
Well,
they really could text message us. I guess they want to know that they're talking to the right person. There's the privacy issues. Is that it?
Oftentimes, well, I'm sure that oftentimes they do, but again, it's the one. Sometimes you just want that. The fact that you've got one simple, universal platform that everybody knows, understands, can support, that gives you the freedom to kind of freestyle a little bit and say, now we can create an instant messaging platform. Now we can create a voice-to-text messaging platform, because we know that if everything absolutely goes to crap, we can still fall back on dial this 10-digit number. A human voice or a robotic human voice will give you the information. That's just basic. That's why SMS isn't going away anytime soon. That's why POTS isn't going away anytime soon, because it's an infrastructure that just works and it's
Carrier
reliable.
pigeons.
JT, who
I can't believe I used the acronym POTS. That's the first time in 5 years I've used plain old telephone system. My God, what kind of a nerd am I?
It took us a long time. We had to
Exactly
get
this kind of nerd.
in DC. In DC, we had to put a POTS line in, for interacting with television stations, for the IFBs. And it has to be a POTS line. And it took us like 3 months to get a copper POTS
they don't want
line
to do that anymore.
to install it. They were like, there was all this resistance. They were like, can't we just give you an IP to? And we're like, no, we need a POTS line.
That's the radio station a couple of months ago, maybe a year ago now, turned off the ISDN lines because the phone companies don't want to support them. And we're over the public internet now using Comrex, and you would never know the difference. It's like, oh, wow.
When you get it working, Comrex is kind of funny because when you get it working, it's great. When you don't get it working, it takes a little love to get it through.
I mean, we have a lot of bandwidth. I presume that the Premier Networks in Sherman Oaks has good.
It's not
solid
bandwidth. Comrex can it's just traversing complicated pipelines. But if you have control of both ends,
They must. Yeah,
Comrex
they
is
must be
incredible. Like once you get it working, it's just like you plug it in and you're like, hello. I'm here.
So ISDN's only 128 kilobits, but that's enough for good quality audio. There's no limit on how much you could use, and Comrex has a variety of codecs designed for the public telephone network. Yeah. So somebody in our Discord chat, JT, who has John, do you have Microsoft after your name because you work there or you just like them? He says, maybe he works there because he says, I get Teams PSTN calls on my iPad all the time. So maybe Teams is the way to go.
Well, there's a whole slew of them. I mean, again, once they're opened and they're in the background somewhere, they call.
Oh, he works at Teams. Ring. No wonder. JT works at Teams. Okay, that's why. All right.
But all of these will ring as a phone. I mean, everything. All these different.
But you need a number. So the thing is, when the hospital's calling, they have to have an area, a 10-digit area code exchange, 4-digit. They have to have that number to call. They don't care. They don't know if it's a landline or not.
I get that's important. I've never had in 50 years, I've never had a hospital call me ever.
You better hope you don't. That's not edge case. Never a good call.
There's an edge case. It's an edge case to me because I can't even imagine it because that's never happened before. If something was that important, I was at the hospital.
Alex, it is one hell of an edge case. I mean, I was. You
don't want that call.
I was off to China during a time where a family member was in a bad enough state that I was considering canceling, but not so bad that it made sense for me to cancel all these commitments that I'd made. And it really was until I reached the point of no return. I had the phone in my hand. There's a point at which, look, if something bad happens, you will not be able to get back in time to do anything about it. But that's why the security of having a phone, the security of having a phone in your hand that says that if I'm not getting a phone call about this issue, then clearly there's nothing to worry about at this time. So that's why I think it might be an edge case, but it's always going to be the most critical.
It's very important.
I think part of it is I just have a very large family and a very large network in the sense that
other people
if something like that happened, I'm getting texts. I'm getting text or messenger or there's a group is formed. I mean, my father had a heart attack a couple years ago and he's fine, But when he did, there's all these texts and there's things, and I flew home, and there was all that stuff that happened, but there was no phone calls. it was just like a lot of communication within the family to sort out what needed to get done.
By the way, I love the way Microsoft. I don't need a password anymore. I just enter in my Microsoft account, and it sends a notification to the authenticator, and I type a number. I love that.
That's great. Yeah. So that's been like what really got me upset with Skype is the fact that Skype would I felt like I had to recreate a password every single time I logged into it. And I just
it's so annoying. Yeah. But now, so I've got JT, I installed Teams while we were talking. Now it says add your phone number.
Oh, there you go.
And then it's going to so.
He's going to call you right as soon as you do, Leo. Watch.
Yeah, exactly.
That reminds me of another reason why phone numbers are here to stay. They are a unique portable identifier for customers.
Yeah.
Where
that's exactly right.
Especially now that you have a cell phone, it is the reason why Facebook and all these other marketers, they are so eager to get a mobile number off of you. And yes, it's for two-factor authentication. It'll keep your account safer, but it also means that if 5-10 years from now they want to still get a hold of you or identify you, they can find you might move from place to place, but you'll probably still have the same cell number.
No, Andy,
the funniest one is that
3 days. If you don't log into Facebook in 3 days, they start texting you the stuff that they think that you're missing. That is no joke. Yeah. They started doing that to me.
It's so annoying. The funniest one is that the two-factor. The funniest thing about two-factor is that you have to, of course, to lock down your YouTube channel or whatever, you have to have the two-factor, and I think they're going to force it in November or something. Anyway, the funniest thing though is that it's all the companies that you work with that some intern set up their YouTube that is no longer there, and so if you want to do a two-factor and log in from a new location, there's no way to. We'll just create a new new account. They can't figure out how to get out of the account that they have.
I think it's
get a new number in.
Reasonable to think that what will happen over time is that 10-digit code that is your unique identifier will become your GUID, your unique identifier, and kind of detached from the telephone system.
There's a huge web project trying to fix this. I know Apple's working with it, and I think Google's working with it to try to just get rid of passwords and have unique identifiers and then one-off random keys that are generated. But like Google's already employing it, and sometimes one of the funniest things that happens, and I say funniest with my mouth, like my teeth grit so hard, is you'll see a bunch of reviewers start talking about random issues with logging into popular services several times a year. And like Google now, you still have Authenticator, you still have the token, but there's no way to get it. All it says is check Gmail app on this phone that you may or not have anymore, may not have any power in it anymore, and there's nothing you can press to say, just let me use the token that is right there in your own Authenticator app. So like we're making progress, but losing our mind at the same time.
Yeah.
This is kind of my grand experiment. I'm not buying an iPhone 13. I bought the mini. The mini is half the price. And if I could use the mini as a phone, the problem is, of course, the Apple solution is, you just have your iPhone.
And use your iPhone as a phone.
And then use your iPhone. But I'm curious so really that's the thing I need is that phone number.
Lisa got an iPhone 13, right?
Yeah, so there's one in the family. You know what, by the way? She's loving it. She says, it's so much faster, so much more reliable. She's very happy.
Camera's so
her
good.
pictures are really,
good.
She's been taking pictures on it, and they are really gorgeous.
I was about to say, my Instagram is now 7 out of 10 pictures on my Instagram are now like macro photos of random things that are near somebody's desk after they fired up their iPhone. It is actually quite majestic. All
right, I got Teams set up. People can find you on Teams by your phone number. Sync. I don't know. I don't know if this will ring my phone or. I gave it my Google Voice number. Talking about confusing. I don't know. I definitely am crossing the streams. This is not good. Anything else to say about them? Okay, I'll tell you a couple of things I like about the Mini. Type-C charging.
Yay.
Type-C charging and data. It's basically this is the Mini Pro, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, really.
Yeah, and I was wrong last time with Alex's calculations because it's not 3 gigabytes per minute. It's 6 gigabytes per minute for ProRes, and I have no idea what I'm going to do with that over Lightning.
Oh, my God. So that means it's not LT. If it's 6.
You said it was 6 gigabytes per minute?
For 10
that sounds
HDR
like HQ.
ProRes.
That sounds like
4K.
So it's HDR ProRes? That's HQ.
Yeah.
Holy
So
camoli.
if it's actually doing HQ, which would make a lot of sense. I was kind of like, it's kind of bummer to do Apple ProRes and not do HQ because HQ gives you 10-bit and 10-bit gives you HDR. You know, and here's the thing is even if it's not doing HDR to start with, it potentially can do HDR, and you can even convert your SDR to HDR with some color grading because you've got the 10 bits there to work with. So it's not as good, but it can be stretched to that, and so it's a good start. HQ is much more interesting. It's a lot of data though. So I mean, for your little phone, I'm glad I got a terabyte on my phone because I haven't gotten it yet, but I got the terabyte because I was like,
you knew
as soon as I saw Apple ProRes, I was like, I need all
3 gigabytes a minute.
6 gigabytes.
No, 6 gigabytes a minute means 1,800 gigabytes an hour. That's
so you can't do an hour.
You can't do an hour. No, that's 1.8 terabytes.
But remember, like when we used to shoot movies with film, it was 7 minutes a reel. 7 minutes per mag.
Just
so
like
you would,
mag.
and when we were doing it for high speed, it was like seconds. So 240 frames a second. It was like you get less than a minute. So when you're thinking about making a movie, what it really does, if it's HQ, it really means the iPhone could actually shoot a movie. Like at HQ, you're now like you could shoot a real film on.
Well,
that.
Apple knows that because I don't know if you've noticed, but all the Apple ads for the iPhone are talking about shooting a movie. I mean,
it was kind of a joke until you put ProRes in there. Like it's like that.
Well, it's still not really in there, is it? I mean, we're waiting for that to be out.
Yeah, but
is there a
when
time frame on that?
I'm guessing it'll be the same as Portrait Mode and Deep Fusion and ProRes last, which is like towards October, November.
Okay,
that seems to be when they get the photo stuff out.
What is the delay about?
It's just it's time. Like Tyler Stallman, who's a really good Canadian photographer, he had Kyan Drance and John McCormick, and I'm blanking on Greg's last name, but he had basically Apple's head of iPhone marketing, Apple's head of camera software, and Apple's head of camera hardware on his podcast yesterday, and they explained in like amazing detail all the stuff they're doing, including HDR4 is now on video as well as on camera, so it's not just doing all the semantic rendering on a single photo; it's doing it on every frame of video as it goes through the pipeline. It's and they've been working 3 years. They worked 3 years out on every camera, so and every chipset. So everything we see now is what they started working on 3 years ago.
Yeah,
but it's a really cool. Deep
I don't
dive
mean to
into the
sound
technology.
ungrateful. I'm just asking. I'm not.
Right.
I appreciate it that they're doing it.
No. It's just they have to finish and get it shipped, and I think every year they overestimate how fast they can get
It's
it
hard.
done.
And Renee, is it? Do you know if it's is it 6 gigs for HD or Ultra HD?
For 4K, it's 1.5 gigs for 1080p.
Because I'm there's no number that really hits that right on. So that's the interesting thing, because it's like 5. Apple ProRes by itself, not HQ, is 5, and Apple HQ is 7.43. So it might still be 4.
It was off the top of a non-camera person, so maybe they were just trying to remember what they were hearing. But I think it's probably ballpark.
Yeah.
If it was HQ at 2398, which they may be targeting, it's 5.94. So that would be about right. So if they were doing 2398 at HQ, which would give us 10-bit video, it'd be really nifty.
We do this math every show lately.
I know. We're so excited.
I actually
Math
put
Break Weekly.
Math Break Weekly continues. USB-C is important because, for a couple of reasons. By the way the speakers are configured with 4, 2 on each side, the way the square sides are, the fact that it has a A15 chip in it, the very, very latest chip in it. The only thing missing is, I would say, massive storage and massive RAM.
Absolutely.
But otherwise, this is a Pro, right? A mini Pro.
No, absolutely. That was one of the few things that I wouldn't say that I didn't like about it, but I thought that I wish that they found a way to make this less expensive. That it really is an iPad Mini Pro. It really is the sort of thing where if you need this device to deliver for you in your pocket, meaning that you don't just want to. Yes, you'll read Kindle books. Yes, you'll read your email. Maybe you'll write a couple of memos or stuff like that. But you also maybe want to actually do real productive work. That's great. But it kind of bums me out that it's $500 for 64 gigs of RAM, of storage. At which point, that really is just a basic consumption device. You really want to add more storage to make it more useful to take advantage of that CPU. And by the time you do that, you really are kind of up there, and you're starting to think, I'm interested in this Mini because of its form factor, but now that we're at $800, let's look at other solutions to see if I'm not wasting my money on something that is just cool.
And have you listened to
think there's a market for the Mini as a Pro? So it's basically the iPad Air shrunk down minus $100, and they think that that's where they'll get the most sales. And if they go to the full-on Pro, the price will get to a point where people will just not buy enough of them to sustain it.
Have you watched anything that's watched a movie with immersive audio, like any kind of Atmos
Spatial
on
audio.
that little one? Spatial audio is incredible. Off all the iPads, like it doesn't make any sense. You're like, I don't understand why this. It sounds like it's all around you, and you can hear it all. And the math in there is like crazy math.
That's why I love having these 4 speakers, and I presume this does the same thing when you rotate it. And all that.
Not the same as the Pro. The Pro will actually go in all 4 directions. This one is mostly for landscape.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay.
The Pro has 4 separate speakers just to do that. This one has 2 speakers. But they're meant so that they have 2 sides, so that if you're holding it in a certain way, you're not blocking the speakers. They want to make it easy for you not to block your own speakers.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I'm very happy. I mean, I think this is in every respect a really a good choice if somebody's looking for an iPad. They want
absolutely.
It's a really cool thing, Leo. If the volume buttons, as you rotate it, the top and bottom volume will shift depending on the orientation, so that whatever you instinctively think is volume up will still be volume up. Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't notice that. That would be confusing for me because I don't expect.
You don't even think about it though. That's it. Like it's just whatever one is on top is up.
That's amazing. All right. Well, they've definitely done a good job. So somebody in the chat room is saying he has been using his Mini for a phone for some time using a service called Talkatone, which I'm not completely familiar with, but I'm setting up my Talkatone account right now.
Now, Teams has your number. Talkatone has. Everyone in the chat room is going to be calling you.
Talkatone gives you a phone number for free.
Everybody. See, this is why you spend that amount of money to become a part of the bonus material, because you get to make Leo dance like a monkey right on the show.
How do you get Leo's phone number? You ask him for it. It's like a grammaton cleric.
All right, now I'm going to see if I call myself. Okay. Okay. I got a number. Now what do I do? 911. You're acknowledging does not support 911. Well, of course. Allow notifications. Allow contacts.
You say of course now, Leo, so casually.
Of course. Talkatone wants to stay free for you. Oh, this is interesting. Actually, I'm going to get to this subject in a second. Ads help support our business. Tap allow tracking on the next screen to give permission. This is in response to the Apple. Do you want this app to track you? I guess I'm going to allow it because
I would love it.
I want a free phone number, but also, that's up front. That's explaining. There's a reason we have ads.
You can do that? I was afraid to ask.
Wow.
I wanted everybody to feel selfish. I mean,
wow.
This isn't all about me app. You don't have to track me. But if you're going to anyway, oh my God, that's kind of flattering.
I guess I could pay, and then you could pay for ad free. But a phone number costs some money, so.
Right. They're not doing that themselves.
Yeah. It's ironic. The ad I'm getting is for Mint Mobile, so
Ryan Reynolds is everywhere.
It all works out just fine. So good. I'll give this Talkatone a try. Thank you, Web9701, for that suggestion. I guess the real thing is if it'll ring in the background, right? That's so like I could give out this number and it would be my phone.
It should. I mean, as long as the notifications are running, the notification system, the local one should.
It doesn't turn it. So as long as you don't kill it manually, you can
or
close
turn off
it.
Notifications.
Yeah, no, and I allowed notifications. Huh? Very interesting. Good. I don't mean to make this all about me, but it is.
No, but it's an interesting pathway because this is a situation that I think a lot of us are going through. Where
what do I need a phone for?
Yeah, exactly. And it really is just for that one little edge case where the best way to get in touch with me reliably is a phone number. And otherwise, I could take this entire extra device and leave it at home and just use this one device.
Yeah. Very cool. Actually, the EU, this is the story I was going to with this, looks like it's about to require one mobile charging port for all, Type-C. And, of course, Apple is arguing strongly against this. Thursday. Pardon me?
Yes, sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
It was that line they said where if Apple wants more than one, if Apple wants to use Lightning, they still can. They can just put two ports at the bottom. I thought that was just peak EU for
there
me.
You go. Really, at this point, Lightning is just a proprietary port. The fact that they put Type-C on this Mini.
Well, the thing is
to be honest, Lightning is just there because Apple's next step for the iPhone is to remove all ports entirely, and they don't want to do all the engineering for USB-C just for something that they're just going to have for 2 years. Right. So that's why they're fighting, not because they don't think this is why I sometimes get off on a rant, and I will not get off on a rant here, but they're not going to say. Do the honest thing and simply say, look, we have engineering goals that do not include have a USB-C port. We're not going to tell you exactly what our plans are, but they don't fit into our plans. Instead, they're saying, we feel as though you're stifling innovation here. And because all we care about is our users, it's like, no, Apple, it's okay to say we're a couple $1 trillion company. We got that way by making our users happy and making decisions that we think for our product line work out well. Just don't say that we're going to throw ourselves bodily in front of this hail of tomatoes that the EU is trying to throw at our our users. That's all I'm saying.
Fundamentally, that USB-C is a horribly flawed platform. Like it is just so the problem isn't that it exists. It's fine that we use it. It's a good enough platform for most things, and it's fine. But it's horribly flawed. Like I have to test every single cable.
How is it flawed?
Every time I pick up a cable, I don't know what it's going to do.
Well, that's right.
I have no idea whether that cable's is it going to pass data? Is it going to pass power? Is it going to do anything else? Like it is a complete chaos. Yeah. And so it is the dumbest. It was so badly designed, and it was designed by committee and just totally trashed. And so the problem is that it's fine. Like I don't have a problem with the format. I'm happy that we have something better than USB-C, or not USB-C, but USB whatever the last one was, micro, which was worse than, which is what they wanted to standardize on before, which was a disaster. And so number one is they haven't finalized it. They've talked about it. Number two is that this is a perfect example of what the government should not do because they're standardizing on a flawed format already. We already know it's flawed. It's not like it might be flawed someday.
It's not even a new format.
It's old and flawed. And so then in addition to that, making a charger is different than passing data. So Apple doesn't need to necessarily, they can make a chart. They can say, well, you can charge the phone with it, but we're going to do data with three little things on the back of it or whatever they want to do. They don't have to put data through that charger. And so the thing is there's a lot of, but it is, to Andy's point, it's that Apple's getting rid of the connection altogether. They're just not doing it in 2 years. They're probably doing it in 3 to 4 years.
Wireless ProRes, though, Alex. Like that's the whole thing for me. Is that, well, like Apple made Lightning 3 years before they could finalize USB-C. It was the same team working on it, and this would have, if they had made USB-A a standard back then, we wouldn't have gotten the iPhone 5, at least not in a format recognizable to us, because USB-A would not have fit in an iPhone 5. And there's plenty of proprietary chargers too that look like USB-C, but there are some that if you lose your I forget which companies do it. It's not OnePlus, but if you lose that charger, you can go get a USB-C charger, but you lose all your fast charge, warp charge, supercharge capabilities. Sometimes you lower down, sometimes you don't have any of that anymore. And the cables are wildly inconsistent. There are a lot of them manufactured poorly. They have so many different capabilities in terms of power delivery, at what wattage they deliver power, data throughput, at what speeds they can deliver data.
Yeah.
And I just don't like the idea of the people who gave us the browser ballot. And I forget what the other one is. They've had a couple sterling examples of technological obliviousness over the years. Maybe Qualcomm or maybe Samsung or maybe even Apple comes up with like this amazing connector in 2 years from now, and then what are we supposed to do? Have 2 ports at the bottom? I find Apple should just put USB-C in, but it should be Apple just putting USB-C in.
So that's the question. How soon is the EU directive going to happen, and how soon will Apple be ready? And we should, by the way, for people who are getting terrified when we say a portless iPhone, we're thinking a smart connector on the back, that there'll be a solution. Will that satisfy the EU, and B, will the time frames match? If Apple's 3 years off, I think the EU is going to do it soon.
Yeah.
So they're not governing like they're not governing non-plugs
exactly.
as far as they
wireless charging is exempt from this. Also, if previous proposals and actions from the EU are consistent, then what they would do is they'd say, yes, you can have your little 3-point dongle, a pogo pugs on the back, but you're going to have to include inside the box a way that people can charge via USB-C through those three. You'll have to include the dongle adapter to make that work.
Which would be great. I'd love that. Make them include all the dongles.
For Apple, oh my God,
there should be dongles for everything.
You want to bring Apple down to its knees. Like suddenly you're responsible for every dongle that every Apple user needs for everything.
No,
like,
but people like argue about Apple wrong, and it frustrates me because it lets them off the hook. Like when Apple switched to USB-C on MacBooks, everyone's like, "Oh, great! Now you can't plug your new iPhone into your new MacBook. There's a different plug." But like 90% of iPhone customers are on PCs with USB-A cables, so that's what the cable was. But the argument was, why didn't you put an adapter in the box? That's just what you should do, like they did with the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack for all of like 1 year. Like there should just there should be like a 2-year or a 3-year mandate that whenever you change something, you include an adapter in the box for the thing that you changed it from.
Yeah. So the EU says, and Apple says this is too short. There's a 2-year transition period. So Apple, I guess your 3-year time frame makes sense then, Alex.
That is kind of short notice to create it's not a trivial thing, and I'm talking about simply cutting the hole in the side of the thing and making room for a different set of electronics you did not anticipate. A 2-year time frame is not a lot. The number that I keep hearing bandied about by engineers is that from go it takes about 3 years to ship a phone. So they would have to get on their.
Although let's be fair, this has been in the making for 10 years according to Reuters. Yeah. So it's not a surprise.
True.
They
probably have.
Like it was 10 years from.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say it was 10 years from what was the FireWire to dock. It was 10 years of dock, and next year is going to be 10 years of Lightning.
Well,
okay.
I think the other question is that in 2 years does Apple have the juice to just say, hey, we can't sell in the EU? It's 23%.
They're not going to do
that. 23% of their. It's 23%, and of that, probably 75% of the people would just buy. Yeah. Just buy it overseas.
To Renee's point, they wouldn't even. They don't even do that in Russia, where they really should say to Russia, "No, get out of our cheese," but they won't. Even though Russia's got to be a tiny market from Apple's point of view. So EU is a big market.
So many
23% is not insignificant. Apple's not going to walk away from the EU. Not to mention that it would look terrible, especially since I would say most consumers say, yeah, that's a great idea. Make everything Type-C.
Well, it's environmentalist theater. They don't want to make any big decisions about like shell. Like God forbid they go after shell. They go after lightning cables.
Well, they
which,
should
yes,
do
it
that
helps,
too.
But
They
it
should
helps
do
to
that
such a
too.
small amount compared to what like the stuff they don't want to go anywhere near.
It doesn't help at all. Like it's a completely. I mean, it's not going to help.
Okay, but it
environment
still
at all.
should happen. You're not arguing against it, are you? Type-C is a better way to go than
It's a
Lightning.
flawed
Apple
format.
should
They
switch
should.
to
No
It's
one should
not
be
a flawed
forced to do
format.
it.
It's a
It is
charger
a
that
flawed format.
everything uses. Everything I have except for Apple's gear now. Every single thing I have charges with Type-C.
And can I back you up, Leo,
It was
by
good
saying
at the
that
time,
I've been mentioning on the show before that it's a I'm kind of this fall I'll probably be making a decision between buying either an iPhone 13 Pro or a Pixel 6 because both the Pixel 6 is going to be a big upgrade and the and the iPhone 13 looks like just a beautiful refinement of like 10 years of development. But I was doing some more thinking about it last week and I realized that if it's anything like close, the fact that the Pixel has USB-C and I would have to be carrying around lightning cables just for this one iPhone would probably tip the scales in favor of Pixel for me. Again, if it were anything like close, then the USB would win the day for me.
And I agree with what you're saying, Alex, about it being a confusing format. But charging is not confusing. Every Type-C cable at least does charging. Everything I have uses
all PD.
Type-C. This makes perfect sense. Don't we even celebrate it? Wasn't I happy? Weren't you happy when I said, oh, the Mini, it's got Type-C? That's a good thing.
I just don't. I just think that it's just a government overreach. You know, to force something that is already broken. You know, like it's already broken. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with Type-C that shouldn't exist or that it's whatever. I'm just saying that to justify saying that everybody has to do the same thing, and something that we already know is totally flawed, is just because now when are they going to change that again? When are they, another decade?
Well,
So for a
there's an
decade
issue
we're going to be
with
stuck
the
with something that we already know is
I would
broken. It's already broken.
Strongly disagree with the description of USB as totally flawed. It has its flaws, but so does Lightning.
So frustrating. It's so
Well,
frustrating.
the other thing, though, is that it's not regulating the type of USB-C. So, and there are a bunch of proprietary USB-C cables out there for all that high power delivery charging. Like people who charge at like up to 100 watts now, which is like ridiculous amounts. Those aren't normal cables. If you lose that cable, you don't get that anymore. And they're not covering that sort of compatibility at all.
Now, if they said,
there is room to innovate off fast charging.
If they said that it has to be a USB cable that can handle 100 watts and manage 1 gig per second, and that is the requirement, I'd be totally behind it.
What
totally like, okay, we're
Apple
going to do.
device besides the laptop wants 100 watts, not the phone?
I'm just saying that is one cable that takes
Android phones will
the
get like
full amount of
60,
data that's capable of. If all the cables were the same.
Well, you could solve that, Alex, by only buying those cables. You solve that by buying those cables.
But the problem is
you're
that
the
you
one who's
can't-
buying incompatible cables. Stop it.
It's just that it's hard to find the cables.
Alex.
I literally have to buy them,
There's
test
a
them, and
Google
send them
engineer
back.
that rated them all on Amazon.
Yeah,
for us.
he's by the way, he's a listener, and he's great. He's in our forums on
He's
a
a
regular
saint.
basis. Because there was such a mess with Type-C cables damaging equipment, he went out and tested them all. But look, all you have to do as a consumer is stop buying crap.
I can fix it.
Yeah.
But the consumers aren't going to do that. They're just going to buy them and throw them away.
Every cable you can buy today would charge an iPhone, period. There's no Type-C cable that would not charge an iPhone.
But
you
it
agree?
can't manage the
You
data.
stipulate that?
Like it can't manage the
No,
data.
we're talking about charging.
I know, but it has to do both, or Apple will find some other way around it. It's fine. It's just that it'll just be
Well,
something.
Apple's already basically
just,
said we're not going to do it. We're going to do probably a portless phone.
right, with some kind of little connector on the back that happens to do a bunch of other things.
Right.
Like it's that. I mean, I think that's probably it'll be a data port that. Oh, by the way, it does charge too.
I'm just going to go on record. You and I disagree. This is a very good thing. They should do. You should move forward. That's the right thing.
I'm
to do.
going to say it again. I'm absurd. I want Thunderbolt on the iPhone Pro. I know you can't fit Thunderbolt controllers in there. I know they don't have 4 open, what are the Thunderbolt lanes that they would need for it, but I still want it just because 60 gigabytes per minute.
I want to be able to connect an external display to an iPhone. I would love to be able to plug this same CalDigit dock that I've
Andy,
got on my
my
MacBook
needs are not
right now.
reasonable.
Can we do
but
that, by the way, on the Mini? I think. Did they decide whether we could?
Yes, but not Thunderbolt. You can use USB-C displays.
But you can use a USB-C display on it, and it does have data, obviously, which means I can connect my USB-C.
10 times faster than Lightning.
Yeah. So
Don't make me cry, Leo.
I mean, if it's such a flawed thing, why is Apple putting it on their devices? It's very
Because
hard
it's
for
the standard
Apple to
and
argue, oh, we don't want to use Type-C, when they put it on everything except the iPhone.
Again,
they consider the iPad a computer, and they want the compatibility with computer-style peripheral.
I think
on
the problem
iPad,
is
where they
that-
don't consider the phone a peripheral.
My complaint is not that the USB-C exists or that it's on the iPad or not. It's just that governments are horribly slow and inefficient. So they're going to make this, and then it's going to stay there for 10 years because they can't decide on what the next one's going to be. And so the thing is that my argument is not that the USB-C shouldn't exist or that we can't buy a cable that doesn't work. It's that they're going to put this in. They won't be able to decide on something else. So we'll be stuck with it for a decade, and we already know it's broken. So it's already 5 years old. It's already broken, and we're going to now say that it has to be the only way to handle this. And so it's, and so that's the problem. It's not the problem with USB-C. It's just that we're basically reaching into the past, grabbing something that isn't fully functional, and we're going to lay concrete for the next decade. And basically in the next decade it won't matter because we're not going to because of this. They'll just everyone will get past it. It's just going to accelerate us getting rid of the connectors altogether. So. Fine.
I think Apple will be alone in that, but we'll see. A lot of people follow Apple's path. When they took away the headphone jack, everybody copied that. So
yeah,
it'll be one of the Chinese companies. They're going to have remember the air wireless charger they showed off a year ago that still doesn't work, where it looks like an air conditioning unit in your apartment. You just walk around and your phone charges without irradiating your.
I think
there are reasons why Tesla was considered a genius. There was also reasons why Tesla was considered to be kind of a nut. And one of them was, we're going to have this immense Statue of Liberty generator in the middle of every town, pelting the atmosphere with electrons so that you can hold a light bulb in your hand and have light. It's like,
the funny thing was it was the 6 hertz was the crazy part of Tesla, because it's like what every living being lives on. So
right.
It might not be a good idea to put that in the air.
Hey, as long as you're not an elephant and your handler's
I think
not
it's
Thomas
Fantastic
Edison,
Four
I think you're okay.
That was Edison.
Yeah, right.
Leo would be Reed Richards. It would work out fine.
So let's take a break, and then when we come back, is Apple's ad blocking really just security theater? Big study by the Washington Post says, yeah, you know what? Everybody's ignoring it. Our show today brought to you by AT&T. If there are friends and family members you haven't talked to in a while, do not worry. It's never too late to reconnect. To help, AT&T is offering deals on the latest smartphones. It's not complicated. Everyone deserves something new, so AT&T is giving new and existing customers their best deals on every smartphone, even the latest ones. Restrictions and exceptions may apply. Visit att.com for details. Actually, I have to say I really like the Galaxy Flip 3 because it has fingerprint reader
yes,
and Type-C charging. It's got the things I really look for in a phone. All right. Let's talk about this Washington Post study. They did it in connection with a group called a Lockdown. And what it appears to be is that even though Apple has kind of required companies to pop up when I just did it with Talkatone, when you launch a new app saying, would you like this company to track you or not? Of course, most people are choosing not. That companies are doing it anyway. Is Apple not enforcing this? What's the story?
They can only enforce what's on iOS. So if whatever you're doing on the phone, like if you're trying to track between apps on the phone, their API prevents you from doing that. They can't control what you do on the web. So they said from the very beginning when they announced it that they have to rely on an honor system, that when you say don't track me, they should respect the wishes of their customer. And if they get reported for not doing that, Apple will have a conversation with them. But ultimately, they don't own anything that's off the phone.
Yeah.
So this is also, a typical security process is a funnel. So you basically start going, I'm going to start asking for something. I'm going to start tracking something. I'm going to start enforcing something. I'm going to start enforcing that with vigor, and then I'm going to be absolute about it. So what we're at is I'm going to start asking for something, and so the thing is that but how you handle security is you start warning people, you start telling them, you start putting in the places, but you're starting to just put these little tags in that you are slowly tying in. That you can then
and private relay solves
use.
for the web.
Sorry?
Private relay solves for the web part because Apple physically prevents you from being tracked at that point.
So the point is that Apple is just at the beginning of something. They're not at the end. And so this is just them starting to turn the crank. And because if you turn the crank too hard, then everyone's all upset and everyone's all, this isn't fair and this isn't whatever. So you just kind of like you're basically corralling a whole lot of cattle, into a chute, and so, but you have to start gently, and that's what Apple's doing, I think.
Jeffrey Fowler and Tatum Hunter in the Washington Post. This is the story. They quote, and by the way, this is a research they did with Lockdown. Say you open the app Subway Surfers, listed as one of the App Store's must-play games. It asks if you're okay with app tracking. We've all seen this dialogue. And most people apparently are saying, ask app not to track. I don't blame them. But something curious happens, they write, after you ask not to be tracked, according to an investigation by researchers at privacy software maker Lockdown in the Washington Post. Subway Surfers starts sending an outside ad company called Chartboost 29 very specific data points about your iPhone. They can't, all it turns out is you're turning off the ID for advertisers.
Yes.
Apple says nothing about sending things out like your internet address, your free storage, your current volume level, your battery level. And why? They don't care about your battery level, but it turns out if you combine these 29 data points, that's a fingerprinting technique.
Yeah.
It's almost exactly unique. There's very few, it's almost exactly unique. If I know your volume level, your battery level, your internet address, your free storage, I know who you are, basically. Apple says apps aren't allowed to track people who say they don't want it. Fingerprinting is not something Apple can probably do anything about, right?
They did in Safari. They're starting to block all that kind of relaying in Safari, and Private Relay is going to start sending you through those anonymous relays, so they won't be able to.
At least your IP address won't be, your public IP address won't be visible.
Yeah.
But fingerprinting goes around all that stuff too, Yeah.
Yeah, them doing that in the App Store, though, is a violation, and I won't be surprised if Apple starts prosecuting that. Sorry, Andy.
Yeah. No, everything you're saying is great. There's a Cold War brewing, however, that makes this kind of an unsolvable problem, because there's going to be a point at which the companies that rely on tracking for making money and staying in business, at some point they're going to say, we're not going to simply now give you a pop-up that says, you've got an ad tracker on, will you consider turning it off? We're going to say, enjoy HTML 1.0 and no news, no functionality, no nothing. We're not going to turn those on for you unless we can actually actively track you. I think I'm saying that everything that Apple does and Google does and independent companies do to limit it is important and has to happen. But we can't blame any of these companies when there are loopholes found and ways around it, because that's everything that these cracking companies do are trying to find a way around forcing a website to put up a banner saying, "Hey, we're not giving you jack because you're not letting us track us," because that's counterproductive.
They're essentially pickpocketing us. So if we don't let them pickpocket us for our information, they'll want to not let us in, because we're like, hey, you can come into the theater as long as I can keep on pickpocketing you. Like, as long, I got a bunch of pickpockets in here, and we're just going to start grabbing stuff from you as you go through it. And so they, we'll keep on letting. Now, like, we can't let you in the theater anymore because we can't steal from you when you're not looking. And so you're absolutely right. I just think that there's a lot of behavior of people who are going to just basically say, well, then I can't go to that website. And I think that's the weight that they have, is that they have to try to make it good enough, to make it worth someone giving them the information. And I love the idea that they just turn it off if they don't get what they need. And so they'll get to see, like, there's a lot of paywalls, and I pay for some of things and I choose not to pay for other ones, because I'm like, their data is not, like the Washington Post, their data is not worth me paying for it.
So it's interesting, because I don't know if that's the consequence end users wanted.
Well, they can just
but
ask,
that may be the consequence.
I give it to some companies.
I thought it was interesting. You saw what happened with Talkato, and they said, look, if we don't track you, we can't give you a free phone number because the ads.
Instagram did that too. They're like, keep us free by allowing us to track you on things. Like, I just want informed consent. Like, if I don't know that's happening and someone tells me, suddenly I'm freaked out. I think they're listening into me with the microphone because they're so good at profiling. Like, it creates all these urban myths and all this stress and all this agita that I don't need. I just say, you want to keep using your free Gmail? We need the ability to serve you target. I'm like, okay, because I'd have to pay $30 for this otherwise. But like, if I don't know, I can't make an informed decision.
They're going to have to do that, because I don't think consumers want that choice between paying $7 a month for something that they were getting free because of ads, And if you say, well, really, all the tracking is allowing ads to be targeting you.
Yeah.
Would you rather have that or pay $7 a month? I think a lot of people would say, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, give me the ads."
Right. Well, then, and they should. And I think
that's how we have to do it. Yeah.
That should be totally above board.
Yeah.
And then this is what we're going to do, and you have to do one or the other. A lot of the problem that they have is that a lot of the most valuable consumers are choosing to pay for not getting the ads. You know, like they're just choosing to pay their YouTube Plus.
Well, that's
or whatever,
interesting. What would you get? What are the advertisers getting? All the people who don't want to pay.
Yeah, and so the folks with the most expendable income are basically opting out.
Fingerprinting is an issue.
problem.
I mean, Google did this too.
Absolutely.
Remember, Google said we're going to turn off third-party cookies, and we're going to come up with something called Flock that respects your privacy.
Yeah,
but
which is kind of the worst.
one of the reasons Google can do that is because they have first-party information. So they
own the browser.
They have all the fingerprinting. They know exactly who you are. They don't need third-party cookies.
They don't just own the platform. They own the
speaks-
browser for every platform.
Right.
Yeah, but it also speaks to how difficult it is to do anything good in a browser. Their latest version of Chrome has a super controversial feature that could actually make a lot of web apps run better. The ability the ability for a website to tell that a page is idle, that your attention is not on this browser. And when they make the case for why they first proposed it a couple of years ago, they said, well, that's because that way you can have a chat app that will automatically change your status to away if you're away. That way that other browsers and other pieces of hardware can check that, okay, well, if this code is not doing anything, then we're not just going to simply freeze this. We're going to actually close this window and save stuff, all this other sort of stuff. But of course, Mozilla and of course Apple, their web team raised objections because that's a really good way to get nasty third-party people to figure out, ooh, so it turns out that I bet that this means that he's asleep from 3 a.m. until 9 a.m. Okay, but he's also gone idle from noon until 1:30, so that's when he has lunch. So it's a way to not only fingerprint you, but also say, gee, he's not paying attention to this web page. What if we had more flashing lights and more colors to try to, and more exciting and disturbing information on it to get his attention back. So we can't have nice things, and oftentimes it's because we are putting limitations on technology based on how badly third-party trackers are going to take advantage of it, which is something we have to do.
They won't. They'll start a playlist for my videos, and then they'll know that they're not watching them, so they'll stop paying me for all those videos that they just put on and walked away and never watched, Andy. And my position on this is flip-flopping.
Welcome to the club.
You've got a farm in Hong Kong that you're paying to like just keep your videos on autoplay all the time, aren't you?
What? They forget that it autoplays.
I know.
That's real income, Andy.
Well, and by the way, there's also a study that shows that Facebook seems to be losing money because of Apple's ad blocking. So even if it doesn't work, it's working. So
it's working enough.
Again, it's the beginning, and part of it is it from a PR campaign, when you have to keep on filling those things out on every web page and the apps and everything else, it just keeps feeling grosser. Like it's ew. Like really, were you doing that?
Yeah.
You know, like really, do you want to do that? You know, come on. Like this is like a clock app that is asking to track me, or whatever it is, and you're just like, so part of this is a slow draw in basically making everyone look bad.
It's a shame though that they hadn't been up front in the beginning. I mean, if you just are up front and say, look, this isn't a free service which is paid for with advertising, and advertising's buyers and agencies want to know who's seeing the ad, so we have to turn this stuff on. If you don't want it, you could pay. I mean, that's what we're doing, by the way.
But it's like Bluetooth,
we're offering. That's what Club Twit was created because we realized advertisers increasingly wanted us to do, things like Chartbeat or Chartable. We do, and pod sites. And so we want to give people a choice: $7 a month and no tracking, no ads, or you get everything for free, just as you always did. But you should know that in order for us to sell ads, we have to put some things in there. I think the thing we do is the least intrusive tracking you can do. And I expect advertisers next year to say, oh, no, we want to know more. fact, they already say that.
But it is a shock. Like when they did the Bluetooth tracking, like all of a sudden when it went on iOS, absolutely they have nothing to do with Bluetooth. We're suddenly flashing up all those requesters. And it was the same thing with this. Apps that I would never have expected were tracking me across the internet. Suddenly they were asking, like I started like a video player and it's like, can we track you? I'm like, wait, what are you doing? I had no idea that their side hustle was just accumulating vast amounts of data to sell to brokers.
That is a
suddenly
problem.
They were exposed.
Yeah, that is a problem. Yeah. Joe in our chat room says one problem. I agree with him. One problem is that people have been conditioned to expect everything to be free. So people who pay $1,000 or more for a phone don't want to pay $5 for an app. So this is what you get. Well, all right. It's not if we got to Talk a Tone can't give me a phone number for free. It costs some money.
Yeah. Also, users are expecting things to just work without any problems or any interaction whatsoever. So this is one of the problems that Apple has to deal with, where if they're suddenly in a position where an important feature of a site or a social network that they use a lot doesn't work anymore, and they're told, well, unfortunately, because you've upgraded to the new iOS 15 does not work with this feature anymore because of privacy features. They're not going to think of that as, oh, isn't it horrible that this company is insisting upon this private information? They're going to say, oh, Apple, why do I upgrade? God, my phone was working fine before I upgraded, and now it doesn't work anymore. And Apple has to always be sensitive to this while they're trying to work for users' best interests.
I don't find myself that way. I may be an exception, but usually if an app doesn't work, I blame the developer no matter what. it's like, oh, they didn't, because I just feel like they didn't upgrade their libraries, and so I immediately don't think that. So I don't know how many people actually think that it's Apple's fault that they didn't.
All they know is that their phone doesn't do the thing that it was doing fine just 2 weeks ago, and
or it becomes annoying, like cookies.
Right, exactly. Yeah, well, Leo, I've come to really agree with what Leo was saying earlier on, where I was a little bit maybe when he was talking about now that there's a requirement in the EU and some other places that if you use cookies, you have to have a little warning saying, "Hey, we use cookies. Is that okay?" Which was good because it was informed consent, which is a really good thing. But how long did it take before you just don't even notice it? It's like, this stupid thing is in my way of being able to read the thing that I want to read. I'm just going to dismiss it, and I don't even notice it.
Actively annoying.
Yeah. Well, my frustration is when they hide it behind an information click. Like I've now gotten to the point where if I click on that and I don't get my choices immediately, I just leave the site. I'm just like, I'm not going to play anymore. Like I just won't interact. Like I'm just like, because they're trying to keep me from. They're trying to give me a little cat and mouse game of I have to now find it. So when I click on that ask for release, I have to, if I don't see the releases on the next click, like the little buttons on the next click, I just won't go to the website. Like I'm just like, screw you, because I know that they're being manipulative. At that point, they're just playing this cat and mouse game with me, and I don't appreciate it. So, because I think it's underhanded. I'm just tired of being pickpocketed.
Apple was told about, this is actually a more complicated story than it seemed at first, told about iPhone vulnerabilities by a security researcher, Denis Tokarov, said he told Apple in March and April of these vulnerabilities. He heard nothing from Apple. The last time he heard back from Apple was August 6th, 12th, and 25th. Then the researcher said he told Apple on September 13th he'd publish details unless he heard back. Finally did go public with it. Apple fixed one of the flaws, but without crediting him, which is against their stated policies for bug reporting. Apple has responded to Tokarev by saying, we saw your blog post.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Oh, hi.
We saw your blog post regarding this issue and your other reports. We apologize for the delay in responding to you. We want to let you know that we're still investigating these issues and how we can address them to protect customers. Thank you again for taking the time. We appreciate your assistance. Please let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah. There are a couple of issues here. Number one is just the interpersonal issue, where Apple, according to the chain of evidence that the developer provided, Apple has actually said we'll absolutely have this done in the next update, and then four software updates, acknowledgement of your contribution of your bug will happen in the next one, and one after that. So it was basically, you promised and you absolutely resolutely did not deliver. But also the question of, this is industry wide. How much time do you give a company to respond to a 0-day before you decide that, okay, they have not given me any specific timetable on when this is going to be fixed? It is now more important for me to spread the word about this so that people are aware of the danger. Because normally the idea is I think Project Zero at Google, I think they give the company 90 days, I think, to
90 days is the normal. In fact, it's the industry-wide disclosure window, 90 days.
So if
yeah.
if 90 0-day means something that you will have total ownership of the entire device without
That's
pretty
not
much any
no,
work
that's not
whatsoever.
correct. A 0-day
wild, right?
is something that exploit that is discovered and is already in use at the same
My
time.
apologies.
That's why it's 0 days between discovery and use.
Right.
The issue here with disclosure, and this is it's something everybody in the because there are, by the way, a lot of businesses now that spend time finding exploits. So you have exploits. They're not 0 days unless they're being exploited already.
Yeah.
However, once you reveal the exploit to the company, the clock is ticking, and that's reasonable because very often companies choose to ignore it, at which point it's just a matter of time before bad guys discover it. And so these security researchers, I think, completely reasonably say, we're going to give you 3 months. That's a reasonable amount of time to fix it. In fact, it's not unusual for a company like Microsoft to go back to the researchers and say, look, we want to fix this. We're working on it. It's going to take us more than 3 months. And them extending that deadline. Google's done that. Others
Or it
have
could
done
also
that.
be already being used because somebody else could have discovered it and not said anything.
And that's the problem. As soon as it's found, it's a problem. And so you really want to incent companies to in a timely fashion, fix it. Almost every company has an example of them not fixing a bug that they've been told about. Microsoft has many. Apple is a lot better on this, I think. I'm looking at the vulnerability. It's a serious vulnerability. You basically, it's an app, a malicious app. So I think Apple also feels like, well, we know about it. An app would have to get through.
Which they now know where to look.
Yeah.
They now know where to look. So, I mean,
Right.
them fixing it immediately was probably sending out a thing to everyone, all the reviewers of look for this thing, and so that, so while we're working on the other side of that, just don't let anything through this wall.
I think it's safe to say that, Steve Gibson has railed against Microsoft for what looks like a willingness to just let flaws go for ages and ages and ages. For probably, it's his theory that they do that for economic reasons. But he also has a theory that maybe the federal government has come to them and said, look, we're using that. We would appreciate you at least for a few months to put off fixing it. That also is completely, seems reasonable that might be happening. Because Microsoft has done that in the past. Apple seems pretty good about fixing stuff as quickly as possible. For most app developers also, the quarter that they do, everything slows down. The quarter, for most platforms and so on and so forth, if they're making a major upgrade, the quarter that is before that upgrade is usually where a lot of things fall through the cracks because most of their engineering resources are focused on, getting it out. And then they switch over to fixing a lot of things for the next 6 months. So asking for something in May or June is usually a time when you might get less attention from Apple because almost all their engineering resources are focused on the new OS. And so, because they've announced it, but they still have to get it out. And so they're not really, and I can imagine, I don't know any fact, but I can imagine them going, hey, this isn't that serious a flaw. We can tell people to look for it and review, and we'll get to it in the fall. Right.
But then sending that email out to the developer means they're going to post it on something. So that becomes another, like telling them the way it is, which is that, hey, we don't have the resources right now to do that until we get Monterey out, and then we're going to look back and we're going to fix it. They're just going to post that on a blog, as they've proven that they will. So if they ever thought they were going to get communication from Apple before, they can be guaranteed that they won't get it now. So other than them sending a really nice email, but I can tell you internally, I can guess that was probably not handled. Yeah. That was not thought of as kindly as the email that he got from Apple.
He does. Tokarev did publish a follow-up article in which he says, yeah, you may say that the App Store review is going to protect you, but here's an example. Let's say you live in a country where homosexuality is illegal, and in this country they force Apple to accept a government app, which often happens, and in that government app there is this exploit code There are, there are plenty of examples of stuff getting through the App Store approval process. So he says that is not a sufficient defense. I'll just, you can read his blog posts. He uses the handle "illusion of chaos" if you're searching for them, and the blog posts are on haber.com. I think most companies are anxious to fix flaws. It's just it just doesn't reflect well on them. But there are a lot of other considerations that we don't know about in the timing of that.
Yeah. Well, this is where silence is a real handicap for Apple in terms of what their corporate policy is. That every corporation has its own culture that has just been developed over decades that is almost impossible to change. And I think their default position is that it is there are worse repercussions to speaking up or speaking out or giving people explanations than there is to simply be quiet, allow the situation to simply resolve itself, handle this internally. And this is one of those situations where we can argue what might be going on inside Apple. And again, they could be, as you say, in a situation where we have been presented with a really good case by a government that it's important that this be in the wild for at least until we open the newspaper and find out that some place has been invaded somewhere, at which point we can do whatever we want with this, but we can't say anything about it. But it also means that if you're on the other side and your entire statement from Apple is Apple had no comment, you just have to go with what you have.
Yeah. Let's take a little time out, come back, lots more to talk about. Andy Anatko, WGBH in Boston. Great to have you, as always, on the show. Renee Ritchie, youtube.com/Renee Ritchie. And, of course, Alex Lindsay, officehours.global. Later in the show, we'll talk a little bit about what you're up to these days in office hours. There's always something going on. It's
always trouble.
Always trouble. You always get in trouble. Our show today brought to you by CashFly. Literally brought to you by CashFly. It's Twit's content delivery network. Many others, too. CashFly's been doing this since 1999. We've been working with them since practically the beginning because we needed a way to get closer to our listeners. CashFly's 50 points of presence are distributed all over the world, which means if you're listening, downloading a show or watching the stream on the website, you're watching it not from our origin point here in Northern California, but you're watching it from a server close to you. That means it's faster. That means it works better. That means there's fewer interruptions. It also saves us a ton of money serving that content. Now CashFly's added a new feature. They call it ultra-low latency streaming. And wow, is this amazing. Less than a second stream delay. That's amazing latency. We're not talking WebRTC here. This is something CashFly's done that's very, very exciting. Their HTML5 player comes with the SDK, so you can put it in anything that you want it to run on: websites, applications, mobile devices. Because they're global, your video streams, this is how you do ultra-low latency streaming. They'll be streaming quickly anywhere you have viewers, regardless of the continent they're on. They just added a bunch of points of presence in South America, and they're all over the world. The scaling is also kind of mind-boggling. CashFly's ultra-low latency video platform can deliver video to more than 1 million users at the same time. They can ingest thousands of synchronous streams. Their platform's designed for transmuxing thousands of streams simultaneously with live failover. They can ingest RTMP, RTMPS, SRT, and more to deliver an ultra-low latency SLDP and HLS streams. And they can do that all at the same time, which is very impressive. And one of the things we love about CashFly is they will tailor their solution to fit your needs. Just bring your usage trends, your bills to cashfly.com. Let them put something together for you. And that support, we've always been very happy with 24/7, 365 days a year. CashFly's infrastructure can support more than 1 million concurrent streams today. And because they're the world's most reliable CDN, they're backed by a 100% SLA. That's a lot of nines. That's an infinite number of nines. 100%, up to 5 times faster than other CDNs. CashFly, Bring your bill. Bring your usage trends. See if you're overpaying by 20% or more. Find out what CashFly can do for you. We've got a very nice place to go. No pressure, no high-pressure sales, just information. twit.cashfly.com. You'll really like them. And I can say that from personal experience. twit.cashfly.com for a complimentary detailed analysis of your current CDN bill and usage trends. twit.cashfly.com. We thank them so much for making MacBreak Weekly possible. iPhone 13 teardown is in from the folks at iFixit. A15 Bionic SoC, 5-core GPU, all the stuff we knew. Were there any surprises in here, Renee? Did you see anything you didn't know about?
No, I think it's interesting the way they relaid out everything and the way they fit the bigger batteries in there and the L-shape. I always like L-shaped batteries on the Pro units, but I think it's an iPhone, and I mean that is both like that's a compliment at this point. It's like an Omega watch or a Porsche 911 or a Leica camera.
Yeah. Of course, I like the L-shaped battery. That's the biggest takeaway on this. Whoops, there you go.
Yeah, and the cameras are huge. Like we knew that, but they're still huge.
Yeah, ginormous. Actually, I'm kind of surprised. You would think, given everything we hear about iPhones, that the repairability would be down to around 1 or 2, but actually it's 5 out of 10. Most you can replace battery and display. Apple continues to prioritize that. Most other components are modular and easy to access or replace, says iFixit. Lots of screws, but they're not glue. That's good. They also say, and this makes sense, waterproofing methods complicate some repairs, but make water damage less likely.
Right.
The rear glass is always going to be an issue in iPhones. It's something Apple chooses to put on for aesthetics. I don't think there's
inductive charging.
Oh, and charging. Yeah, you can't put metal on there.
Qualcomm has a patent for through metal charging, but it's not very efficient.
Yeah, but
antennas.
I got
the antennas are more efficient.
Silicone case. Works fine. MagSafe goes right through it, and it protects that. So there's ways to do that. So a good. I always love their teardowns. It's, as you said, there's not a whole lot that we didn't know about this, but pretty interesting.
At least
to your point earlier, they're not malicious about it. Go
ahead, Andy, and then Renee.
I think Renee was about to say exactly what I was going to say, and he'll probably say it better. So go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Renee.
No, I was just going to say, maybe not, but I was just going to say it's your previous point. They're doing what's best for Apple and for Apple repair centers, and sometimes that makes them more repairable because the machine that swaps out the screens at the Apple retail center this year happens to be way easier to use for everybody than it was last year. And sometimes they're not very good at waterproofing yet, and they get way better at waterproofing in years past. And sometimes glue is just the only way to solve a problem that they have, or the cheapest way to solve a problem that they have. So it's mostly a purely functional company, which in some ways is understandable, in some ways it's terrifying.
I know you get the corporate briefings, Renee, and we benefit from that. So thank you. GQ UK got a conversation with John McCormack, who's VP of Camera Software Engineering, and Graham Townsend, VP of Camera Hardware Engineering. And I thought there were some very interesting tidbits in here. 800 engineers working on the cameras at Apple.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
800. Townsend said the planning has to start 3 years ahead because that's when the spec is fixed. So that's when the sensor's defined. That's when the processor is frozen. 2018 was when this was all locked in. That's really a long time frame. I wonder if Apple...
It's a crazy thing when you think about it.
Stuff about Apple, like not like people left and so things weren't the way they should. This was all done 3 years ago.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You'd think they'd want to speed that up, but must be that they can't.
It just takes time.
Yeah.
It just takes time. It's a really complicated thing to do.
And it's very novel stuff. Like when you talk about things like Face ID the first time, when you talk about things like cinematic mode this time, it's new and novel stuff. And they actually went out with cinematographers and studied. It's not a quick process for them.
They quote Kyan Drance, VP of Worldwide iPhone Product Marketing. There's always this obsession with, and this confirms what we were thinking last week, how do we make this really easy to use if you're not a trained photographer, but you just love taking photos? This is interesting. That makes sense. That's the focus, although they admit that they were very aware of TikTok as they worked on this, and filmmakers. Okay.
There was this really great part because it's the same people who were interviewed in Tyler Stallman's podcast. And one of the things that John said was, he's a traditional like boots on the ground animal photographer. He's on Instagram. His photos are beyond amazing, but he's like, I will mask and expose individual parts like the teeth, the eyes, the face, the background, the thing. We'll go into the dark room and we'll do all these things. And it's years and years of experience as a photographer. But when we create like things like Smart HDR4, the machine learning algorithm, we're trying to do that. We're doing all this semantic rendering. We're doing all this in the camera. And like, you don't have to be someone with 20 years of photography experience to know how to mask everything and expose and process it separately. We're doing all that for you. So it's giving you that sort of learning in the box, which is, again, also great, but terrifying at the same time.
We always talk about these deeply technical things like ProRes, like how much data throughput is going to happen. What can you do? Can you shoot real movies, real cinematic movies with it? But every single engineer, number one thing on the whiteboard is always someone takes out a phone, they get a picture with as little fuss and little delay as possible. It's all about that one button press. How long does it take to light up that phone app? How long does it take for the screen to compose? How long does it take between the time that button is pressed and the image is captured? And how good an image can we do without the person having to do anything whatsoever? And that is, I love my semi-pro Olympus camera. It's a really impressive piece of engineering, what it can do in this little small package, but consistently the biggest problems are this is like Apollo 13 every single day, figuring out how to make one button press do as much as possible without screwing up getting your capture right.
Well, in fact, to that point, there's a great quote from Townsend when he's trying to tell the teams what they're doing is important. He says, the way I explain it to the team to keep them motivated every year is we have a remarkable responsibility. We have a privilege to help capture precious moments that people aren't even expecting to happen. And so I think they treat this as a kind of a holy mission almost.
I mean, the vast majority, I definitely take photos with nicer cameras than the iPhone, but the vast majority, 99% of all the pictures I have of my kids are from my phone.
Yeah.
And can I say, as someone who often has both an iPhone and an Android phone in their pocket at all times, consistently, it's not just the quality. It's not really the quality of the picture so much as the reliability that I envy about the iPhone. Like there's something I saw an animal that I wanted to get a picture of, and I tried to take a picture, and I got an interruption from the tile app saying, "Oh, it seems as though you left the house without your key, without your bag." Like I don't care. Like, was this useful? No, it wasn't useful. Then, oh, great! I'll close down the camera app and take you to the tile app so you can tell us more about how we made you angry because we interrupted your day with an unnecessary. And of course, the animal, the squirrel or whatever, is already long gone. And this is the sort of stuff that doesn't happen on an iPhone device. Even when it's an interaction with a third-party app, they really get this thing on lock. So this is one of the most human things that Apple does, is making sure that when something happens and you want to get a picture of it, you will get a picture of it.
It's interesting. They're also kind of aware of filmmakers. You wouldn't think that they would, for all the attention and the ads and everything, you wouldn't think that they really would think that that's a serious part of their market. But apparently it is.
Well, when we think about filmmakers, we want to remember that what they're really looking at, I think, more than filmmakers are the people who are making training videos, the TikTokers, the YouTubers, the Vimeo folks, all these other social networks. The thing is that, Kodak gave film for a long time to filmmakers because the people making independent films and all the other things want to aspire towards that. So it's not necessarily that they're targeting filmmakers as much as they are targeting people who aspire to be a filmmaker, that they could actually, create something at that quality without a further investment.
They do quote an actual filmmaker, director Ben Wheatley, who used multiple iPhone 12s in the production of his most recent movie, In the Earth. And Wheatley says the problem is that, an Arri Alexa is 100,000 pounds. So having a piece of kit you can chuck about and not worry about roughing up is increasingly valuable. What I want is to be able to use a camera like a pen or a brush, and it's getting closer to be able to do that without it looking really crappy. The fact that these phones can spit out 4K, everything is so much better.
It's good PR. Like, I just want to cut into that just a little bit.
Good.
You know,
Please.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
so what's typically used as a crash camera when using an ARRI is a Blackmagic 6K, which is $2,000. So he's absolutely right. Yeah, so the 6Ks are crap. My brother is a Steadicam op, and he's like, "Yeah, they work great. They work great as crash cameras." And so
you're not going to use an iPhone for that. Yeah,
they're not going to use an iPhone for that. They're going to use that's a little bit of, like, now what the iPhone is nice for is it's really compact and it's really easy, and you can just stick it in there, and there isn't a lot of setup. And if you're just trying to pick up a couple shots, it might be useful. We've used it in productions because we needed to, so there have been reasons that we've done that, but it's a little inauthentic to say that the area is $80,000 or $110,000, so I used an iPhone when there's, you can get a 12K Blackmagic for $6,000 and a 6K for $2,000, and those are going to give you much higher quality images than the iPhone.
Well, but it's not just the camera; you got to put a lens on it too.
Still, I mean, it's still if I put a $500 lens on, if I take a $500 lens and put it onto a $2,000 Blackmagic, I got a $2,500 camera
that you don't mind
is
losing.
going to look way better than an iPhone. Like I love the iPhone. I shoot tons of stuff with the iPhone, but we just want to keep it in the area of what it really is good at.
That's why we ask you. Nope.
Yeah,
we want
stuff I've heard that like it's been opportunistically snuck its way into some big productions. Was either they captured something as a test and it ended up looking better than what they captured. Very short, of course, like 1 or 2 seconds. Or they could put it in a place where they just couldn't fit whatever they had planned for the day, and it was like an emergency situation, and they got their 3 to 4 seconds of a shot that they needed. And so in some really big movies, there are a few seconds of iPhone stuff that has snuck its way in.
Well,
and
that's where the
422 how a second unit. There's a famous story about how a second unit camera operator on a Martin Scorsese movie said, basically he wanted to show Scorsese the kind of shot he wanted to insert on a plane, like just he needed a shot of like the no smoking sign or go back to your seat sign going on. So while he was on a flight, he just shot this with his iPhone or whatever and just sent it to us. Oh, by the way, this is what I'm going to put in. And he said, oh well, no, too late. I've actually put it in. It's fine. It works fine. Let's just put it in.
Yeah, does it feel like that?
So I don't know. We'll take it with a grain of salt. DXOMARK, as you know, every year looks at the iPhone. This year ranked it with 137 points. That does not put it at the top of the list. That puts it 4th, but pretty close to the top.
Apple chooses not to pay DxO to consult on how they do better on DxO.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Huawei apparently doesn't mind, nor does Xiaomi, because they're in the
I just always have an issue with
3.
companies that have consulting and rankings. Like those have to be completely separate for me.
Yeah.
And I have to say that it is really, the Apple ProRes is going to be a big deal for anyone who's that serious that they're going to look at a DxO, is that understanding they can actually capture real data that they can actually use on the phone is a big deal. Like, no one's going to think about other phones to do that once ProRes is available, because all the other phones will record in some weird H.264 or H.265 compression, and it's not going to be anywhere near ProRes. And it is a killer feature. Like, there are certain features that you look at and like, oh, like that is a must-have feature for them. So I think that that annihilates pretty much everything if you're doing anything that's remotely valuable on your phone. The ProRes codec
for photographers.
Yeah, and so those things are that really sets them apart from every other phone, regardless of the sensor score.
Have you been having trouble, anybody, with your iPhone 13 and the Unlock with Apple Watch feature? Apparently some are, and Apple says yes, and it will be fixed in an upcoming update.
Mine is different. And again, this is like a inside baseball story, but when you set up 4 phones, anytime you set up the phone, the last one tries to take over your watch. So now, like, I think the Mini or something is paired with my watch, and I don't use the Mini as much as the other ones. So if I take a different phone, I can't unlock. I have to go and reinstall all of them. Or go back to wait for my phone to arrive.
Take my phone, because I bought her the 13. She said, take my phone and review it for a week or 2, and then you can give it to me so that you have some experience with it. And I started, and I realized it's going to wipe out everything. I'm going to have to. And I said, no. I played with it enough.
It's pretty fast.
Yeah,
if you do direct transfer now. It's pretty fast.
I don't want to. Yeah. By the way, should mention that. For a long time, it was our recommendation. It was certainly my recommendation to connect the phone to iTunes on the computer and back it up and restore it that way. They have worked every year on improving the iCloud backup and restore. And at this point, it is seamless. It's fast. It works very well. John Gruber said better to do the slow one than the fast one. I don't know.
It's not the slow one. So if you restore from iCloud, like coming down from the cloud, you won't get most of your passwords back. Most of them encrypt the passwords in a way that iCloud. Yeah. But if you do the device-to-device one, and you can do it wireless, or you can plug in the camera adapter that gives you like a lightning-to-lightning cable, basically, plug that in and do it hardwired, and then it's faster. But going device-to-device, you'll get all the passwords, all the tokens, everything as well.
So it's your recommendation to do the device-to-device?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little slower. I mean, so you can still do the encrypted iTunes backup if you're like desperate. I do that when I'm reviewing because I need every second. But I've tried the wireless one several times and now it works great.
Okay. Yeah, I have to say, very, very impressed. I set up the iPad that way. And started to, as I said, I started to set up the iPhone that way. But Lisa did it. She set up 3 phones because we have a hand-me-down process. So her phone went to her son, her son's phone went to her ex, and so we set up 3 phones, and it was very nice, very seamless. Apple has really every year improved this process, and now it's pretty much painless.
It pops up, do you want to move your watch over? Then the watch just reboots and the watch is moved over and it has a little sticker up that says, do you want to move anything else? Yeah, it's really good.
So do device to device because your cookies and everything get saved. So you don't have to, it's as if your phone moves over with you.
I think Andy is way softer than everybody else because I keep hearing him like a second after we start talking, but it's incredibly ducked.
Really? Oh, I'm ducking myself because I don't want to interrupt people if they're going. Sometimes I have somebody I want to say.
Say something, Andrew.
All I was going to say is to your comment earlier. It's such a joyous thing that Apple doesn't necessarily make the cheapest phones in the world, but you have phones that get passed on a second and a third time because they're still perfectly good, they're perfectly modern, and they run the latest operating system. And this is not something that many companies actually do.
Yeah. Will Shipley, very, very famous, created Delicious Library, changed the way Apple software was developed for the Macintosh, has joined Apple. Kind of a shock. So he says, I'd like to assure Delicious Library customers I'll do my best to keep Delicious Library running. I can't add features anymore, but honestly, I haven't done that in a while anyway. But congratulations, Will. He's a great developer. I expect we'll see some beautiful stuff coming out of Apple.
Since
thanks
the next days. Like he knows all the old school Apple executives.
Yeah. He's a long time third party developer. So he's joining Apple. I did have one problem with my Apple Watch, but it wasn't related to iOS 15. Might have been related to watchOS. I hadn't updated the previous update, and because it was stuck. So I finally just reset my watch, which works pretty quickly, and got it up to watchOS 8. I don't know if I've heard other people having a similar problem. So that was one little hitch in the upgrade.
There were also some people who were complaining about a jelly effect on the iPad mini, which they could just see the refresh. And the reason for that is super simple. It's that every LCD display refreshes from top to bottom, basically. And if you turn it on an opposite direction on the iPad, you can turn in any direction and then scroll really slowly. If you're perpendicular to the refresh, you can sometimes see that. And this iPad mini changed the direction of refresh from the previous iPad mini. So I think people who moved from one to the other weren't expecting it. And so they could, and then once someone starts pointing it out, everybody notices it. But it's just how displays work.
Okay, good to know. Recent study on Apple's Apple Watch Series 6 oximeter says it's good. In fact, this study from nature.com says that it's actually very useful in patients with lung disease. So, of course, if you had lung disease, I probably would get a standalone pulse oximeter. But the Apple Watch, apparently we observed strong positive correlations between the Apple Watch device and commercial oximeters when evaluating heart rate measurements and oximetry measurements. I mean, there was no statistical difference in the evaluation of skin color, wrist circumference, presence of wrist hair, and enamel nail for SpO2 and heart rate measurements. So the conclusion of this report is Apple Watch 6 is a reliable way to obtain heart rate and SpO2 in patients with lung diseases in a controlled environment. Wow.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
That could be very, very important because it's sort of like when you get an alert that, hey, your heart is racing and that's unusual and you feel completely healthy. There so many times you hear about people who had a cold and then they're dead 3 days later because they did not know they had a serious respiratory illness. But if they started to get an alert to saying that, yeah, I know that right now you're just feeling run down and feverish and coughing a lot, but your blood oxygen level has gone down to 92% when it's usually 98%. So perhaps now is a good time to call, make an appointment, have this checked out.
I don't. Apple, as you know, with iOS 15, did not ship out its child pornography scanning feature. And I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but the EFF did fly a plane over Apple headquarters saying, don't
your donation
scan.
money at work.
Don't
But then Brandon Kutcher went on The View to complain about it. So, like, it's I'm so confused now, Leo.
Don't scan our phones. Flew it over the Apple campus, even the old Apple campus, just to make sure like everybody sees it. Okay.
I just wonder if they planned it. I don't know whether they did that before or after Apple announced they were going to delay it.
I think they
but
did
I just wonder
afterwards.
if they planned it all and they got it all working and then Apple changed it and they were like, well, let's do it anyway. We'll get some
I
press.
think it's exactly what happened. Because in the article they said, well, this delay may be a diversionary tactic. So, they did it during the Apple event, which is silly because nobody's at Apple's headquarters for the event. But anyway, it went along with protests in front of Apple's store as well. But Apple had announced that they were going to pause that before that. OnePassword has a new feature. I love it. It's kind of like the Apple private email feature. It will randomly generate email addresses as you log in. So as all password managers do, they'll generate a random password, but now you can have a random email address, and it works with Fastmail, so that if you're a Fastmail subscriber, you could just have that's basically, it's not quite two-factor, but it's definitely better than one-factor. It's 1.5 factors, we'll call it.
I think we're just seeing there's this, as Andy was talking about, there's this battle that's going on for privacy where people have just gotten to the point where they're clear of what's happening. And that clarity is having them just basically be obstinate about it. I don't want to play.
It's not just
I don't
for
want to
privacy. It's also for security because, as you know, not only do you need a password, you need the email. So using a non-standard email is also even more secure.
Right.
Yeah. Apple says we are not going to allow Fortnite back into the App Store until this court case is done due to Epic's duplicitous conduct.
Well, they found in court.
Scalawags, mountebanks.
Basically, the bottom line is that Apple never has to let them back in because they violated.
The court said so. Yeah,
they violated violated their agreement. So once they violate the agreement, Apple could just say, "Well, we're never going to do that." You know, so they're well within their rights at this point.
Yep. They have no legal obligation to do so.
And we'll forget what Fortnite was by the time it comes out. Like it'll be like our kids will be like playing some other game as adults.
Duplicitous.
Yeah.
They were duplicitous.
It sucks for people who really enjoyed Fortnite on the phone, and it's like the judge in Apple even said that they could leave it on the phone and put all the money into escrow, and then they would divide it at the end of the trial. And Fortnite said, "I don't understand their strategy. They were just like, the dumbest way you could litigate this case was a choice they made every time, and it affects people who did want to play on their iPhones, which is sad.
Well, or iPad. I mean, Fortnite on this Mini would be actually a pretty fun.
It's great
way to play.
It was They were one of the first high frame rate implementations as well. Like they were like poster children for like how to make great games. Epic was on the stage so many times, and they just so dumb.
I know, like my upset with Epic happens to be that I love Unreal Engine. So they have such a great product, and they're doing so much great work as a company. You know what they're buying all the right apps, and they're making things free, and they're making it all great. And to me, my upset about this whole thing is mostly that it was just a completely unforced error. Like they just, they've cost themselves whatever they thought they were going to get. They've cost it way more than that. And they thought that they were going to. I think that they had a bad case. They thought that they could get public opinion, and no one cared. Like everyone's like, oh, I'll just go play some other game, and so then they got into this back and forth, and they were, to be on the Apple stage with Apple is worth billions. Like it is worth. That's what they gave up. And and that's it's just an incredible example of hubris. So
they might say, Tim Sweeney might say, oh, okay, fine, we lost, sort of, but we did fight the fight, and Apple has started to back down a little bit. Apple has opened up the App Store a little bit more. They've cut some of their fees. I mean, they could also declare a moral victory, if not a legal.
Sure,
one.
but he didn't. It was clear in the emails that he doesn't care about anybody else other than himself.
Right.
Like in the emails, he was like, if Apple, if he could get what he wanted, he was going to let everybody else burn. Like he just wanted his deal. There's no moral high ground here. He just wanted a lower price. And so the thing is that's so whatever he thought he was going to win, he hasn't. By the time this gets through court, Apple will figure out 6 ways to Sunday to basically hollow out any agreement that's done. So the thing, they have plenty of time, and so the thing is it's just, and what he gave up was this close relationship with this company that could help him over and over and over again. We can talk about the legal and the moral and all the other things. It was just a dumb thing to do, and it was, from a business perspective, and all people are people, and I've made plenty of mistakes as a CEO of companies, and I've had my fair share of stupid things, and so it was just a stupid thing.
I've learned this from watching the fabulous HBO, rather Showtime show, Billions, that you should not let emotion dictate your investment decisions.
I thought you were going to say Silicon Valley.
And that too. But don't let emotion get into your business judgment.
Oh, he had a business model. I understand he has a business model he really wants to push forward.
Well, he made a lot of money.
But he has a business model. He wants to make a marketplace. He doesn't want to sell games.
Right.
He doesn't want to sell a platform. He wants to sell.
He's looking across the table at Steam. Well, he wants to be Steam. And he wants to be Steam on mobile, and I understand that. That's a really good place to be. Steam is completely dominant in PC gaming.
It's just that I just think that the chances of him ever really getting the traction that he needs, even if he wins all of these things, which the chances of him winning in the current court structure is pretty low.
I think he's I think he's
so the chances of him winning are pretty low, and he'll keep on dragging it out. And by the time he gets to the other end, Apple's going to make friends with other people or replace it altogether themselves. They're gonna, and they're never going to give him they will never give him the time of day, forever. And so the thing is that he's just it's just a horrible uphill battle that he created for no reason. Like he had a great app, he has great technology, he has all the things. He has an incredible team. I have tons of friends that work at Epic. One of the best, most cracked teams when it comes to what they're doing. And so my upset with the whole thing is just that, wow, you had everything going for you, and all you had to do was just keep making that work. And we see companies do this all the time.
Oh, Steve Jobs did it.
Oh, Steve Jobs definitely did it.
He declared scorched earth against Adobe, against Google. And
Avid did it. I mean, Avid declared they're going to drop the Mac platform, and
oops,
that was a
bad move.
That was probably the most expensive press release ever released in the history of technology.
One thing that Apple definitely wins in the phone market is with updates. Google still struggles with getting Android phones even half secure. Adoption for iOS 15 is very good and works on all the phones all the way back to the iPhone 6S. But if you have an older phone, a 6, a 5S, or an iPad Air, or Mini 2, 3, 6th generation iPod Touch, you should get your updates. Apple's rolling out iOS 12.5.5 to those older devices that can't use iOS 15. And the update includes notable security fixes and improvements. So you might want to get that. It's good for Apple. I mean, they're keeping old stuff up to date, which I really respect. It's really good. Very important. Tim Cook says employees who leak memos do not belong at Apple, according to a memo leaked to The Verge. You do not belong at Apple.
It's like when Mark Gurman leaked the memo about the people who got fired for leaking to Mark Gurman.
Oh, man.
Now The Verge is leaking a memo that Tim Cook did about The Verge. Because I forgot her name, but she was doing the play-by-play of the Apple meeting live on Twitter. And then she's like, oh, they're getting angry at me for live tweeting.
Yeah. Dear team, it was great to connect with you at the Global Employees meeting on Friday. There was much to celebrate. I'm writing today because I've heard from so many of you who were incredibly frustrated to see the contents of the meeting leaked to reporters. This comes after a product launch in which most of the details of our announcement were also leaked to the press. I share your frustration. We are doing everything in our power to identify those who leaked.
We're setting aside a special room in the gym so people can rend their clothes, rend their garments, and wail to God in privacy and security.
I'm shaving my head. I hope you will too. We know leakers constitute a small number of people. We also know that people who leak confidential information do not belong here. As we look forward, I want to thank you for all you've done, et cetera, et cetera. Yours truly, Tim.
This was kind of creepy. What with the timing, where all over the news was Apple employees are starting to complain that there is a code of silence that intimidates them against making complaints about workplace issues. And so here we go, a week later, having an all staff saying, everybody who says anything about Apple that gets to the outside, we will be investigating you, we will be punishing you, and you do not belong here.
Well, I mean, it's
the power to be your best.
Leaking is different than saying stuff in public.
Not to Apple.
No, but leaking.
No, you're right. You're making a distinction between leaking to a journalist and tweeting
or leaking
and tweeting the all hands meeting.
No, but I'm saying leaking.
Two different things.
Leaking. You know, when you work at these companies, you do sign agreements that say you won't do that.
Right.
You know, and so you are breaking your agreement with the. I've signed lots of NDAs. for lots and lots of different companies, and you know, the joke is always you can say whatever you want on your last day. You know, and so I think that. You know, they are breaking their agreement that they did sign with Apple, and so you know, this is not a whistleblower. Whistleblower is going to the national board.
That's different.
So as a whistleblower going to an external source, that is something that you have the right to do. To leak to the press is something that most companies would drum you out of the company if they can find you. I mean, that's leaking.
But do keep in mind that this is the pretext upon which many companies, not just Apple, will say that, oh no, you violated our NDA by telling people that every Tuesday at 3 p.m. someone hits you in the face with a shaving cream pie and you said to stop and they wouldn't stop. It's
but going to the National Labor Board is where you adjudicate that, not by leaking it. You know, so the thing is that leaking.
You can say whatever you can. No, you're entitled to. If you're getting absolutely no resolution from the company on an issue that you think is abusive and you want to affect change within the company, you can't fault those people for saying the proper avenue for this is the National Labor Relations Board. When we realize that Apple doesn't really respond to a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board, but oh my God, if you tweet out something about saying that Apple has been sitting on these 40 days and they were supposed to credit me and they didn't, oh my God, once it's a PR problem, it really gets on Apple's radar and they get stuff done, or at least they react.
But it's still.
So I'm absolutely not 100% going to say that I believe that this was at best ill-timed to when so many people inside of Apple are thinking about this very issue, that there are issues that I really wish that Apple would address, that Apple is refusing to address. But now I'm afraid to talk about it because they will say, well, your department is not authorized to know about how well you've been harassed while we were developing something that other compartment was not supposed to know about. So therefore, you were breaking your NDA with another department and you're fired. You can't. It was bad timing, bad visuals, or maybe just bad completely. I'm not going to equate that with. I'm not going to lump all these things together. I do think that once you're in that sort of situation, it would have been a great time for Apple to say, "Hey, we know that there have been all these issues about complaints inside of Apple. Please realize that we are going to listen to these. We're going to look at our processes and procedures to see if there's things we're doing incorrectly. And of course, although we want things to be secret, we want you to be able to talk openly, at least inside Apple, about these issues." None of that. It was more like, remember, this is a company of secrets. We will find you. We will punish you if you have anything to do with leaking secrets that we did not want to get out there. So I
think that's a good point, because the person who was tweeting the all hands meeting was tweeting specifically about labor issues. Yep. I mean, that was the purpose of that. To see how Tim's response to the labor issues were, so I understand that wasn't. I'm sure that person did not consider themselves leaking proprietary product information. They were telling the world about a employment issue at Apple, and I think that is very different. I think you're right.
The issue though is that you're still breaking the rules. So you're brave.
Well, you can get fired for it. You can get fired for it.
You can be fired for it.
Nobody says you can't.
and it's just like we can talk about the morality of all the other things.
No, but I
the
think
reality
Andy's point is well taken, which is that this would have been an opportunity for Tim to make a distinction between the labor issues that they're having and product leaks. That's two very different things.
But the thing is that the all hands meetings, the reason companies don't have all hands meetings is because they're afraid people will leak things.
Right. They're
a pretty sacred place for a lot of these companies, and leaking anything out of all hands meeting is really a violation of trust. And the thing is the chances. It's one thing to talk about what you're upset about and everything else. Violating an all hands meeting is really a huge, because it means that the companies can't do it. They can't talk to all their employees. They can't have conversations. They can't be frank at all when employees are handing out data from the all hands meeting. The reason that they exist is so that they can have communication, and they're basically thwarting that. So the thing is that it's I just think that it's a pretty big slap in the face to take something out of an all hands meeting and make it public. And so they can do whatever they want to do, but I think that they're Apple will figure out who it is and they won't be there anymore. And if you have all these complaints and you think that it's okay to do an all hands meeting, you probably don't belong in a corporate environment. You belong somewhere else in a smaller company that doesn't have all hands meetings. And that's what you're going to find if you do it.
Let's see. We should real quickly, before we take our final break, run through a few of the rumors that are floating about. This is the last.
There was another.
Oh, yeah? Go ahead.
I was going to say there was a big update to iWork today, which was pretty phenomenal.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah.
So Keynote has gotten live streaming, so you can there's a live video object now that you can put in any Keynote presentation, and you can treat it like any live object. So it can be just like a regular sized object on the slide. It can be the full slide, and then you can stream to that as you're presenting. So it's almost like like in the video game YouTube, where you have the person in the corner talking to you while the game or whatever is playing, or they just take over the slide or anything you want to do with it. You can add effects, all those things. There's also co-presenter modes, because they found a lot of people call these the COVID releases because a lot of feature sets have been determined by our last 2 years. But when they can now have multiple presenters, so that you don't have to keep hearing, go next slide, please. Oh, too far. Go back, please. You can just hand over control of the Keynote. There's pivot tables in numbers, which I know for a lot of spreadsheet nerds has been
huge,
way too late in coming.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites. It turns out that I didn't realize this, but Pages on the iPhone is their most popular app. iPhone is the most popular place for iWork, and Pages on iPhone is the most popular app. And now there's a button, like basically reader mode, so that when you get a Pages document, you don't have to zoom in and out just to read what's formatted for like a normal size document. You just hit reader mode. Doesn't change any of the formatting at all, but it gives it to you the way Safari reader mode does, in much bigger, clearer, vertically stacked layouts. And then you can just go through and read the document and check it. So there's just a bunch of really good quality of life improvements.
I love it that they're keeping this up to date, because it can't be a big money maker for them. They give it away and so
11
forth.
updates in 3 years, I think they said.
Yeah. These updates are for all versions of iWork. So if you use iWork on Mac, iPhone, or iPad, you're going to want to update it. There's the reader mode.
Yeah, that was my pick for the week. So anyway, we'll just
you can save it.
A couple
things.
You
can say more if you want later. Okay.
No, I'll just refer back to the section. We were talking about it, but the Keynote updates are pretty interesting. The live video inputs, the ability to.
So give me an example of how you use a live video input in a presentation.
I don't know. Like, it just got released. I don't know what it is. Alex Gollner tweeted it out earlier. He's a friend of mine, and he tweeted it out. And so I was like, I'm excited. I'm just going to talk about it because I still think that, Keynote is probably one of the most important communication tools ever made. Like, it is so effective
it is now.
at putting things together. Well, but it is so effective at building, illustrating ideas, and it's so much more fluid than the other solutions, which I have to use all the time, and so I have to use all of them all the time. And so it's not like there's three versions. There's like PowerPoint and Slides and Keynote. There's PowerPoint and Slides, and they're kind of close to each other. And then there's Keynote, which is in an entirely different world. And so the thing is that it is And so Keynote now has, what it says here is that it's going to, and we'll talk about it probably in the future, but you can actually put live video into your presentation, and you have, some new charts and so on and so forth for numbers as well. But the live video and the ability for multiple people to run, for people like me, multiple people being able to run their one presentation from anywhere in the world is a big deal, because we have, we're doing all these presentations for people where you have people in all kinds of different remote areas, and how do you get them all in? For the live video, I think that what you can do there, the way I read it, is that you can have a web video or my Blackmagic 6K or whatever feeding into Keynote, and if I'm screen scraping it and pushing it into Zoom or whatever, I can have that picture-in-picture experience that I might want, with what I'm doing. So it's some pretty cool tools that are built in. And, the Pages stuff, the new reader looks amazing to be able to just take a Pages formatted and pull it into something that's easy to read on an iPhone. It's one of the reasons I don't sometimes build things in Pages, because I know people are going to read it in an iPhone. So being able to publish that out and be able to turn it into something that you can look at is pretty good. Because again, Pages give you, if I don't do something in Keynote, I build it in Pages, because it gives me a competitive advantage. We can talk about whether people have access or whatever they want to do, but I usually, when I'm doing a presentation or a pitch, I just want all the competitive advantages I can have, and one of them is that Pages just looks a lot better than Word. And looks, so if I want to put text in it, the way it kerns, the way it anti-aliases, the way it builds pictures, the way it lays out, just looks a lot nicer. The templates are a lot better. And so it's just getting, so it's a lot better platform. People can talk about what they like to use and don't like to use, but your stuff looks better in both of those things. And that means that you oftentimes can separate yourself from other competitors when you're presenting something, and so it's a really powerful update. I was a little disappointed we didn't see any support for 3D objects. That's what I was hoping. I'm always waiting for updates going, are they going to put 3D objects in? We didn't see that, but the other stuff looks pretty powerful. There's my pick. So
good. You just did it early. That's all. No, that's fine. No.
Oh, good.
No, it's a big story. I know I don't use iWork. And I really, every time I see stuff like this, I go, I really should use iWork.
It's so much. There's things about it that, like, if you want to collaborate with other people, it's not a great. I mean, this collaboration of being able to do the presentation is great. The collaboration tools in iWork, I don't think are that great. If I'm going to collaborate with someone and we're all going to look at a spreadsheet, we're going to do it in sheets. That's the reality.
Well, I think that's part of the problem is that if you're a spreadsheet wonk, you want Excel. Period.
Okay,
but what
kind of spreadsheet wonk? So the thing is if you're doing heavy spreadsheets, you're absolutely right that Excel excels, right? When you're doing like really complex, multi-sheet and heavy data, when it comes to doing calculations for your budget, proposals, layouts, a lot of the organizational stuff that we do, numbers is so much easier to build. It's so much faster to use numbers to do most of those other things. All my bids that I do are all
prettier. It's prettier.
No, it's not just prettier. It's faster. Like it's way faster and way more seamless for me to build what I build. And I have a thing about white space, and so I hate the idea that I have to look at cells all the way across. With numbers, I build my own little tables.
Right.
I put them where I want. I have this table has a different font size than these ones.
That's what I mean by it's prettier, Alex.
Well, I know, but okay, yeah. So yeah, but when I win a lot of bids.
Yeah. No, it's definitely prettier.
So when we say prettier, it
depends what you use a spreadsheet for. I mean,
exactly.
But Lisa uses spreadsheets for finances. She wants Excel. She doesn't want
that's
pretty.
Fine.
She doesn't want white space. And similarly, right. I think there are better ways if you're a writer than Pages to write. I know.
I don't write in Pages.
Nobody writes in Pages. It's a presentation tool.
I write in Notes.
But I mean, I think we'd all agree Keynote is better than PowerPoint. There's just not even a close.
It's more elegant. It doesn't have all the battleship features, but it's elegant.
Yeah.
Up until recently, Keynote was used for everybody's presentations, whether they knew it or not, and then that got out.
Right.
so we then had to start.
I'm sick of PowerPoint. The look of PowerPoint is just god awful. So I guess I should look at it some more. I feel like if I want to write, I'm not going to use Pages. If I want to crunch numbers, I'm not going to use numbers.
I don't write in Word either, so it's I just don't want any format.
No, I wouldn't want to write in Word either. Yeah.
I just like to be raw.
Yeah, I don't use Microsoft Office either, to be fair, except for Excel.
I just want plain text.
Rumors. Getting quickly to the rumors. We are at the end of September. So next Tuesday is October 4th. Will there be an event then? Yay or nay? October 5th, I should say. Yay or nay? What do you think? I guess not. We'd have received an invite by now, right?
Yeah.
October 12th, second Tuesday. There's only 4 Tuesdays in October. 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th.
They've had October 31st, and last year they used November for the max. So we have,
maybe
we
it's
have a great
November.
range of weeks to pick
Yeah,
from.
maybe it's November, you think?
Yeah.
Are they going to do, they're not going to do 3 events this fall then, you think?
Andy and I were together on October 30th or 31st in New York, and like people were dressing for Halloween already. It was the weirdest Apple event vibe I'd ever seen.
I feel like that's a little late for a product that you want to have in the store for the holidays.
The other complication is that the best rumor right now is that Google is going to be having a hardware event on October 19th.
Right.
So that would ace them out of one Tuesday. If that is truly a date, if Apple knows this is the date, and if they care.
I'm thinking not. It's obviously not next Tuesday. So I'm thinking we're thinking the 12th here. Anyway.
Or November.
Which is too late. But I guess they could do that.
But these aren't the school computers. These are the computers that pros have been waiting a
So what are we going to see? The 16-inch MacBook Pro with the M1X?
14 and 16, yeah.
14 and 16. Kuo-Ming Chi, as you say, has disappointed me because he says the new MacBook Air won't be till next year.
It was always next year. I think the difference is they were previously saying first quarter next year. Now they're saying second quarter next year. But
he's saying Q3.
Next year is next year, so it's going to,
Oh, but maybe he's Apple's Q3, which would be
Apple's Q3 is
our Q2.
Is the June-ish, yeah.
Okay, so summer next summer. Oh, that's not so
April,
bad.
May, June, yeah.
That's not so bad. And then this is an interesting story. Apple AR headset rumored $2,000 plus price tag entering mass production Q2 2022. This is from the Taiwanese
headset,
version
though.
of
I think he's
Digitimes.
conflating the two.
Okay. So what do you think? The only rumor mill I care about is Renee Rumor Mill Richie.
No, I think that we'll see the VR headset sooner. That's like an Apple TV style product. It's like they figured out a way to make an Apple TV a personal product again, not a family product, and they control everything about it. They don't have to worry about big TV sets and stuff, and they can deliver Fitness Plus and video games and.
So you think that's what it'll be?
programming.
Is an Apple TV for your head?
Yes, yeah, I think it's going to come right out of that same project, the same way the glasses are going to come out of the Apple Watch project. I think they've got those two things pretty clearly.
And the Apple TV for your head comes out next year?
Yeah, I think it's the easier of the two by far. In terms of like they have the
It's
processor
existing
load
technology
for it and everything.
Yeah. Okay.
It'll be really high end. Like that's going to buy you 8K displays for each eye, and it's going to buy you like a lot of really good tech. But it's going to be really good tech. And they were working on it since 2017. I mean, they famously were working with Valve for years, and then Johnny's like, "We're not putting a helmet on somebody's head with a box by their foot." And canceled that one, and now they had to restart everything.
I think that's exactly how he said it.
He's making Ferraris now too, so like
I saw. So what does Apple have to announce this year? Are they going to do iPad Pros?
I think the Mac Mini will the higher end Mac Mini.
I think the 32-inch
M1X
iMac has to come out, doesn't it?
That sounds like it's coming early next spring. Like it took so much
Okay.
work to get the 24-inch out that it's going to come to early next spring. The iPad is for next year because they just announced one in April, and the new one sounds like a much bigger update with wireless charging,
Okay.
well, inductive charging, and all those kinds of things.
So I
and
feel
they
like
did them iPads already. The rumor was iPads and Macs, but they
At
did the
this
iPad.
point, Intel Macs sales have got to have slowed to a trickle. I feel like, right?
The people who are buying them are like the Alex. I don't want to stereotype, but like the Alex Lindsay studio types who they want to stay on Intel for 3 more years to get past their software transition times, and they want really big boxes, so they're still buying. But
I don't know anybody buying Intel anything at this point, other than like there's a heavy compatibility issue. The one place that people are doing it is there's something where someone's already
If you're using
announced they're
Pro
not gonna support
Tools,
the M1. There's some-
you're
yeah,
going
there's
to
some
buy an Intel
Pro
Mac.
Tools. You're not going to
it's
buy
in-house
anything,
apps, I think.
You're not just going to not buy anything, yeah.
You can't, like Pro Tools, I think is still stuck in Mojave.
Yeah.
So I think that you can't buy really any piece of hardware.
Yeah.
So I think that it is, there are a handful of things people know, it's never going to work on an M1 and probably will go for another couple of years, or not never, but won't anytime soon.
We have to buy.
So maybe that makes sense. We have to buy it because it's the only way for us to do it. But it's really gotten and I think that what happened was a lot of us thought when M1s came out, we thought, that'll, this will be cute. They'll play with it. When we saw the performance, everyone stopped buying. Like everyone I know was like, no. Like we're not going to touch any of this anymore. And so
which makes me feel like the clock is ticking then, because Apple needs to get for instance, a high-end iMac and a high-end Mac Mini out.
July of next year, that's their 2 years.
I mean, what I will say is I'm kind of stunned by what I'm doing with the Mac Mini. Like I'm running Resolve.
Okay, so maybe you don't need it. Yeah.
No, like that's what's scary about it is that I have these tiny little computers that are doing incredible amounts of work. And so a lot of things we thought we had to do with an iMac, definitely an iMac. The Mac Pro I think is in a different class, but my Mac Minis are going way faster than any of the iMacs we've had.
And who's buying an Intel Mac 16-inch MacBook Pro? Nobody, right? But I was hoping that we would see those this year. So let's.
Mini LED sounds like it got pushed back.
Oh, maybe that's the thing that's the wild card, isn't it? Is chip shortages, COVID,
and
Mini LED.
Component, yeah.
And the other thing that kind of complicate this is that how much of this is Apple going to consider this to be a rollout of a new Mac Mini or in a new 16-inch MacBook Pro, and how much of this is going to be invested as a rollout of the new M1X, the new M2. So basically, here's the next generation or the second evolution of our Apple Silicon, and how much work are they going to have to do? They think they want to do to say, we had a great start. Here are the numbers. Everyone loves it. Now here's how much better it is. Here's what we've been able to expand. And does that mean that they don't want to do a subtle thing? They really want to do a cannonball sort of announcement that makes people realize that Apple is where it's at for the future.
All right, let's get to our picks of the week next as MacBreak Weekly continues. Since we've ruined your pick of the week, Alex Lindsay, do you want to?
I'm so sorry.
Do you want to do anything, or just refer people to earlier in the show?
I'll give you the one that was going to happen. There was one before that one that I was listing. I don't have it in the rundown.
That's fine.
I was going to recommend the Monoprice Blackbird 8x8 matrix, which is a little more expensive than Keynote. It's about $800. It is an 8x8 matrix for HDMI. A lot of us have routers for SDI, and I needed a router for HDMI. And what it does is it lets me take all my computers and feed them all into one place, and then say, okay, I've got 8 different places. It might be my ATEM Mini, it might be other monitors, and I want to push any one of these signals, my PC, my various Mac Minis, my iMac, whatever. I want to put this over here on this, on this thing. And so I don't have to figure out what I'm plugging in. Once you have the matrix, you can just sit there and just plug in, okay, I just want to send this to that and send this to this. And if I don't like it, I don't have to figure out how to rewire it. They're all wired into the system. So it makes kind of organizing screens, which I have a lot of here, very easy. So anyway, it also supports HD, all the protocols, that you need, which is hard. Getting things to pass data through them, EDID, HDR, those types of things are a little complicated. And Monoprice keeps on adding, what they're doing. They're kind of.
I shouldn't be afraid buying
really
it from a low-cost leader. I mean,
it's a little wonky in the sense that you push a button and hit enter. There's no nice interface and everything else, but it generally, when I plugged it in, it just works. And so there have been a couple formats from the. There's a couple formats from the Mac Mini that have it gets a little confused. So, but what I will say is it makes it a lot easier for me to get my signals where I'd like them. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
And only $850.
It was down to $550. It went back to $850. So,
it's out of stock right now. Though that may be again.
That's probably why it's $850.
Another chip shortage.
There's a bunch of us in office hours that were, it was like, is it working? Is it working? Is it working? And we decided it was working, and then I think a bunch of people bought them, and it's probably why they're sold out.
I should have given this pick to you, but because I don't know anything about it, but I did notice that Trimble is now, which bought SketchUp from Google, is now doing an iPad version, and it's in beta. Do you ever use SketchUp? It's
SketchUp's great.
You recommend?
I haven't seen the one on the iPad, but SketchUp is a super great program for being able to basically sketch out.
Wouldn't it be great on your
locations.
iPad? It seems like with a pencil.
It would be. Most of the 3D stuff has been really hard to do that way because you need more granular control over position of points and things. And so I have a hard time visualizing how I would create a SketchUp style model.
How it works.
Yeah, I'm on the site
I'll definitely
right
check
now.
it out.
Yeah,
I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been like that part. SketchUp is probably the most likely to do well because it kind of does a lot of things that are automatic. But it's been, my experience with using 3D apps on the iPad so far has not been incredible.
Okay.
But I'm willing to try it because SketchUp is a great app that we definitely use for a lot of things.
Good. So Trimble's done a good job with the acquisition. They've kept it up.
Yeah.
I was a little nervous when Google sold it.
It fits into their overall ecosystem. They make a lot of engineering tools. We were working with other Trimble. I was in the Trimble Business Center. Their 3D app is called the Business Center. Anyway, so TBC is this. What it does is it takes in all this data. So you're taking in scanning, like LiDAR, like big LiDAR scans, and you're able to process them and make it all work. But it's this huge data processing thing for scanning and site surveys and everything else. And it's called the Business Center. My friend Fred and I were talking about it yesterday because we were scanning something in Monterey yesterday, and we were talking about the Trimble Business Center. But they do a lot. So SketchUp fits into their overall model because a lot of their other stuff is in surveying and in BIM and in a lot of other things that are there. And so the front end of that being SketchUp totally makes sense. It's not something they just bought. It's something that fits into a lot of the other things that they're doing.
Yeah, I always think of it as a GPS company, but they say really they are I love this, positioning-centric information company.
Yeah, I mean, like what we use, to give you an example of it, we use this thing called an we've used this thing called an SX10, which is it's a survey tool that also has a scanner, and it'll do about 60,000 points a second. Wow. And what it does, though, it's because it's got a survey tool, you can mark it against a reflector. So we were doing a golf course, and basically you're in one part of the golf course and someone else is like 300 meters away, and you can sight it in with the scanner so that you can tell where that scanner was in the world, and you have a GPS receiver that basically that marker is based on via radio connections and so on and so forth. And so you can create super accurate models over miles, that you can, or square miles that you can put together. And so they make these really heavy duty, solutions for, really high accuracy survey work. And then they let you process all those point clouds and all that other stuff. So it's a big company.
Nice.
They do a lot of cool things. Yeah.
Nice. Alex, I'm sorry, that was Alex. Who are you? Andy.
I wish I were Alex.
Your pick of the week, don't we all?
Mine is a video that just dropped on YouTube this morning that I've already watched twice. Because my goodness, if you're involved in a lifestyle that has projects that have to get done, and a lifestyle that might kind of be organized around getting these projects done, this video is just filled with so many things that will make you pause and rethink how you want to run your entire week and your entire project. Martin Moland is the designer and builder of the Marble Machine, the 800 million views on YouTube. It's that machine that plays music by just dropping marbles onto a xylophone and on those.
Yeah.
It's so cool. So for the past few years, he has been working on what he calls Marble Machine X, which is the much better version of this that he wants to take on tour with his band. And so he took a couple months off for vacation and then came back with this video that basically said that, okay, I'm going to finish Marble Machine X. It's just instead of taking it on tour, all I'm going to do is play and record one song and one video with it and then move on. And this video talks all about what he's been learning about project management, big projects, and how to run these things. This isn't just someone saying that pontificating from a sofa with a glass of brandy. He's talking about, here is what I've learned over the past 3 or 4 years. Here are the things that have been holding me back. Here have been things that I'm still kind of struggling with. And here are other people who write about these topics that have been teaching me things that are kind of interesting. And he makes these 4 points that, just to summarize, that number one, he says the problems he was having with the Marble Machine X was that, number one, he didn't make the requirements less dumb. meaning that he's been trying to solve problems that are all associated with an early decision that, hey, the mechanism for taking the marbles from like the bottom of the machine and moving them up to the top of the machine so gravity can move them down, he did that because he picked a mechanism that would look really, really cool on stage. And for the 3 years, he's been battling problems created by the fact that he's got this super cool looking but inefficient and easy to break down mechanism. He identifies that as if he had made the requirements less dumb, saying the purpose of this mechanism is to get marbles from the bottom to the top, and it has to do so reliably, he would not be working on these sort of things. And he gives a couple of examples, working on too many non-essential things, things that include like making videos like every single week. But they also, one of the things that has really kind of also triggered with me is the difference between shallow work and deep work, which is something he was getting off of another book that he had read that he links to. The idea that we all kind of know that multitasking is a fraud. We really can't do several things at once. But the way that he articulates this and explains this in the way that you can either make infinitesimal progress on 10 things today, or you can make deep progress on one thing today that will not only it will satisfy your soul in a much more profound way to say that, no, this thing that was not working before is now working. This problem that was not solved is now solved. And also it helps you to get to the state of mental flow that keeps you kind of meditative and happy. The other thing that related to this that kind of hit with me was he showed I guess he tracks his time or plans his schedule with Google Calendar, and he has the weekly view where he has like every single task is a different color in this bar, and how before all the tasks he was at, it was like you see this sort of like plaid stripe of different colors, each representing a different thing, and that he has now redone this so that it's just, here's a big block of blue, then a big block of red, then another big block of green. And it just made me realize that there are often times where I've got the morning set to, here are 4 or 5 different things I have to make progress on before I take lunch. Then after lunch, maybe I'll spend 2 hours writing this or building that. And it really does give a lot of insights on why work is not the same thing as accomplishment, why the amount of pleasure and satisfaction you get will help you to do better work, and how sometimes you have to just be brave enough to say that this thing that was part of my initial design that I've been holding on to for 2 years, that's been nothing but causing problems. If I got rid of this, realize this is a dumb requirement that I shouldn't have to deal with, I should go ahead and do that. So it's kind of heartbreaking that I was looking forward to, after the break, saying, okay, Marvel Machine X is all done, and so now here's going to be our big 10 album and 10 tracks I'm going to be recording with it. I was not expecting to hear, yeah, you're going to see this in one video once. Wow. You're going to have one piece of music, and then I will start working on what he calls Marvel Machine XT, or the Turing version of the Marvel Machine, but with all of these different factors working into his workview. Again, I'm really recommending strongly that you watch the entire thing, because he is an exceptionally good filmmaker. On top of everything else, he knows how to communicate. And once again, it's not, I have such low tolerance for productivity YouTube channels, because, okay, great, you're an expert on productivity, but all you do is talk about productivity. You're not, that's like being a writer who does nothing but writing about writers who write. It's not nothing, but it's not probably the most helpful position. He is someone who's tackled this enormous project and has realized, here's where I screwed up at multiple occasions. Here's where I would like to relaunch it moving forward. And he's saying things that make sense to someone who is not using CNC and welding and CAD and all kinds of other things to build a ridiculous machine that drops marbles on xylophones to make beautiful music. So high recommendation.
And of course, he has inspired so many, like this TikToker who created his own marble machine. John, if you would.
Yeah. Anything that uses squeezable rubber chickens as a music instrument.
That's a marble machine. Those were rubber chickens, by the way, performing. I think he Rickrolled us. Renee Ritchie, your pick of the week.
So for a very long time, I have been lobbying, downright begging Apple to bring this feature from Logic Pro called Strip Silence to Final Cut Pro. If you're not familiar with it, it lets you choose an area of audio, and it'll just automatically cut it for you wherever there's a break in the audio. In our case, like for podcasts, if there's silence in the in the timeline for that specific track, it'll just cut it up and then you can go and delete it so you don't get background noise. Or if you want to bring things closer together, it's a little bit of automation that makes your life easier. And Final Cut Pro does not have this feature, but this morning someone tweeted out to me an app called Recut. It's not a plugin, which I'd much prefer to have, but it's a standalone app. You drag your video there and it does all that cutting for you, and you can go in and say, no, leave this, no, get rid of that, no, you do all of this. So you can basically get it to do all the cuts for you and edit them the way you need it, and then you can export it for Premiere or Resolve or Final Cut Pro. And when you, like, for example, I'm working on my A15 deep dive right now, my A15 Bionic deep dive right now, and the A-roll that I recorded for it, the video of my talking head I recorded for it is 52 minutes. The video is going to end up being 20 minutes, but I broke sometimes. I had to double check things a few times. I flubbed all the time. So it goes on, and there are breaks in it. And a lot of my time is spent with like the blade tool, cutting where the audio ends, cutting where it begins,
just little
again,
trims,
deleting the part in between.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's fast. Like you can do it with like, Command B, Command square bracket. And some people are really fast at it. Nobody as fast as the machine, just doing it for you.
How does it know where to cut though?
You can set a limit, like you can say immediately after silent, like immediately when the voice drops.
So it's using silence,
or you can put some padding
as the indicator. Cool, that's really interesting.
And it's
so this way you kind of have this sloppy early cut, and then it tightens it all up, basically.
Yeah. I mean, like I don't have the pressure of live video like we do on Mac Break Weekly. I can fix.
This is why I don't care,
because
I like silence. I just insert
like Jason
myself
Snell,
in
it's
there.
like he's shown like how he goes through 8 tracks of things, and he uses strip silence so he can remove
so
back. Because sometimes people are eating chips in the background when they're not talking, and they just send you their track. There's like all sorts of stuff you want to clean up when you're doing multi-enders.
Yeah,
and it's the same thing in video.
So no more tiny fiddly handcrafted cuts. Recut. It's $99. GetRecut.com.
And there's a free demo if you're not sure if it'll work. Because like some people don't like XML in their workflow. It messes up their pristine management systems. But for some other people, it'll be great.
I should send this to Henry because it's pretty clear that in order to make his tight little TikToks, he's doing a lot of editing to cut stuff out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I will send him a link. Very good pick. Thank you. Thanks to all three of you. Been a lot of fun. Renee Ritchie, what are you working on? YouTube.com/Renee Ritchie.
I am working on my massive Apple A15 Bionic deep dive.
Can't wait.
About all the new Avalanche and Blizzard cores and the G14 GPU and just all the goodies.
How do you is there a white paper? You base it on your briefings?
No. Briefings, and like in a perfect world, I'd wait for a Nantec to publish first, but it can take them 3 months to do a review of an iPhone.
Yeah.
So I just I try to figure out as much as I can, and I talk to as many people as I can. And Apple publishes some tech talks, which are helpful, but it's a lot of grunt work.
Look forward to it. YouTube.com/Renee Ritchie. Now with the silence is removed. Andy Anako, when are you going to be on WGBH next?
Just a little bit later this week. I'm on Friday as usual, but at 1:20 in the afternoon. Just go to WGBHnews.org to stream it live or stream it later.
Very nice. And Alex Lindsay, what's coming up on Office Hours, officehours.global? You're muted.
Today we spent we spent a whole hour talking about the Behringer Flow 8. We just
my God.
Cool. And it was so much data. We went through like 40 questions, inside of that. And anyway, and so but
this is a Bluetooth controlled digital mixer.
Yeah, it's a really interesting mixer, and so we just answered everybody's questions. It literally was just one of us, Carl, who knows a lot about. Just sat there and answered everybody's question. Literally any question you could think of, we just answered all of them at one time. And so 60 questions. It got
How does it work, Carl? How does it work?
So anyway, so that was today. Tomorrow we're doing what we call ruthless reviews. We literally go through the panel and just pick at everybody's video.
Oh my God.
This is how you get really people with really a whole show with people who look really good, is that we just pick at it. Like, the light is a little off, and your background, it feels a little heavy to the right. So if you really want to see people like pick at it, it's coming tomorrow.
I don't want anybody picking at my videos. Thank you.
Thursday we're talking about how do people break into the industry? Like, how do you actually get into it? So we'll just kind of talk about how people have gotten into industries that they weren't in. Friday, we're talking about Isadora. Isadora is an incredibly cool app, mostly used in theater. It's a nodal controller. And a lot of the new versions of what we're doing, you can have it take OSC and MIDI and all kinds of other things and just talk to everything and turn this on over here and turn that on over there. And so we're going to have a bunch of the experts just, again, do Q&A. And then on Saturday, we do education. And then at noon, we have, and we don't broadcast the education. So you never see it because the teachers wanted to be able to talk more frankly.
Oh,
and
nice.
So that's at 8 o'clock on Saturdays.
You broadcast it, you don't record it.
It's in Zoom.
Oh,
so you
have to be there for it.
You have to be there for that one because we don't put it anywhere else. But then it also not on Zoom, but we record it is the Belfast, what we call the Belfast method, which is that we have a band playing in Belfast in a place called the Accidental Theatre, and we have people running the show from all over the world. So they're switching the cameras and running the audio and doing all the other stuff from different parts of the world, taking over. So you get to watch it from behind. You'll get to hear their comms while they're talking to each other and figuring out how to do it. And so it's going to be a busy week.
Very
like
exciting.
That every week.
And you can get an invite to the Zoom as well as look at past videos at officehours.global. And of course, if you would like the trained professional Alex Lindsay working on your next thing, go to 090.media.
We do some cool stuff.
Very cool stuff.
Yeah, we did a wide range. We had a company that had to a group had to figure out how to do voting and everything else on Zoom on one weekend. The weekend before that, we were doing a concert. So we do a lot.
It's nice, the variety. That's great.
Yeah, I do.
That's great. And meanwhile, let's play a little marble machine as we head on out. Look at this ring.
That is so great.
Is this the X or is this an older?
This is Marble Machine X.
That's really, really cool. Really,
it really is incredible. I wish I could remember. I wish I could recommend the whole thing, but you probably don't have 8 weeks of constant video watching to get through.
I can work on it. I need things to do in retirement.
Once you're up to date with Ted Lasso, move on to Marble Machine X.
There you go. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We do Mac Break Weekly, Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. Please, you can watch us live if you want. Join us at twit.tv/live. There's live audio and video. Chatters who want to join other people watching live can join us in 2 places. Of course, there's our free IRC. Been with us for 20 years, irc.twit.tv. Members of Club Twit also have access to our fabulous Discord server. That's one of many benefits of Club Twit, including ad-free versions of all the shows, tracker-free versions of all the shows, plus the Twit Plus feed, which is stuff that didn't make it to the podcasts. If you're interested in Club Twit, $7 a month. It makes a big difference keeping us afloat. It really helps out. Maybe that's the best reason to join. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit. After the show, on-demand versions, we have trained professionals cutting out all the silence. And no, guys, you can't use recut. They put it up at our website, twit.tv/mbw. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to Mac Break Weekly. You can watch the show there. Easiest thing to do, probably get a podcast client, like Apple's Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Overcast, something like that, and subscribe. That way you'll get the show the minute it's available of a Tuesday afternoon. And incidentally, if your podcast client allows you to leave reviews, it'd be nice if you left us a 5-star review. I would be eternally grateful. Thank you. Tell the world about Mac Break Weekly. We've only been doing this for 15 years. I mean, there's probably people never heard of us by now. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Now it's time to get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.
If you find yourself talking to those virtual assistants in your house quite often, or maybe you can make your light turn on and off with the touch of a button, well, Smart Tech Today is the show for you. Join Matthew Casanelli and myself, Micah Sargent, every week as we talk all about smart stuff and the fun that comes along with it.